bad thing is that they are not just like far apart in negotiations, they're not talking the same language. And until they do, there's not going to be a whole heck of a lot of progress on this. What I mean by they're not talking the same language is Major League Baseball wants a salary cap. The Major League Baseball Players Association wants status quo. They're talking two entirely different financial infrastructures to govern the sport. And so until they can even agree on something as simple as, okay, what are we going to have to enforce the rules of the game? There's not going to be a whole lot of progress.
Don't you love a good labor negotiation?
Oh,
Don't
yeah.
you love a good back and forth conversation about billions of dollars and how things should be worked out, T-Bone?
Nothing gets me more excited. It's like Christmas morning all over again.
Well, get used to hearing
it's
about
like getting
it
socks for Christmas
every month, or a tie for the next 7 months leading up to when the new the old CBA expires and the new one kicks in. That's the voice of Jeff Passan, who was on Sportsnet 590 The Fan, talking about the owner's response to the players' submit of the conversation of coming up with new labor agreements. And along with Tanner Henderickson and Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario. So we ended the show yesterday with the information from Bob Nightingale, to where essentially we knew that the owners were basically saying, look, the ceiling is going to be $245 million. The floor is at $171 million, which would mean 12 teams that are under that floor: A's, White Sox, Reds, Guardians, Rockies, Marlins, Brewers, Twins, Pirates, Cardinals, Rays, and Nationals would all have to spend to get to $171 million. And then you had 8 teams that were above it that would have to find themselves cutting about $578 million to get below it. And that's really the biggest thing that came from the owner's proposal, T-Bone. I was reading whether it was Evan Drelich's article or Bob Nightingale's article or Ken Rosenthal's article, and essentially things are just not anywhere near completion, which shouldn't surprise anybody. This is what happens when you get to the initial stages of the negotiation. But the players sent over theirs that basically said, we got a soft floor, we'd like to do the revenue sharings, but there's no salary cap. In fact, we're actually going to raise that luxury threshold so that teams have more money to spend. The owners came back and said, absolutely not. You're spending to this. This is it. And that's all they said. There was no arbitration conversation. There was no free agency, conversation. It was salary cap, salary floor, 50-50 revenue shares, kind of like what the NHL has with the escrow. That money gets put into it, and if they meet their threshold, then the players get that money dispersed, or they don't get and they have to pay in. So that's where it stands right now. Basically, it's owners responded saying, we're not really talking about anything other than the salary cap, and that's where it really feels like, T-Bone, this is going to get uglier as we move along.
Yeah, no surprise that they went with the salary cap. I mean, we talked a little bit about it yesterday. We kind of expected they were going to do that. The thing I was surprised by was just how little details they had involved in it. And I guess maybe I shouldn't have been, because, like you said, this is the first of what unfortunately is probably going to be many of shots across the bow between the two sides. But I love the idea of going to a salary cap, right? I've said it before. I think that this is where baseball should be heading. And the offer from the owners seemed kind of reasonable to me, you know?
I can't tell if that's just because we want the salary cap or it actually seemed reasonable to us.
I think it's probably the salary cap is what we want, is the reason for it. I think if you're a player and you get into the finer details, I can probably understand where the players come from. But this was the first sign of what we expected. They're not close. And as Jeff Passan said, they're speaking two different languages. They can't even agree on the first step of this, of how they're going to decide what the payroll situations are going to look like, right? How are we going to decide, is there a cap, is there not a cap? And you can't do anything until you settle on that. And the owners, without putting much detail into their proposal, I'm curious to see what the next step of this is. Are we going to go weeks without hearing anything, or are they actually going to get to work and start talking?
It might go months.
Yeah.
Typically how these things go, one side sends theirs over that they feel is good. The other side sends theirs that they feel is good. Both sides are pissed off. Nobody wants to speak to each other for a couple of months.
And that's where it'll be curious to see, because if you look back on the last go-around of this, the players sent their first proposal around this time, and then the owners didn't respond until August. Now, at least if we want a positive here, the owners have already responded to this. Now, I don't think the PA is too thrilled with this. I don't think the owners were too thrilled with the PAs, so this is going to be a while. But I'm in favor of going towards the salary cap model. I mean, you mentioned it. You're going to pull up more teams than you are going to drag down, and actually force them to spend more combined money than the teams that you're dragging down to the top of this in the ceiling. So I'm in favor of this idea that the owners are trying to propose. But there's so many freaking questions as to what exactly this would look like because of just how bare bones their offer was. Like, what's the arbitration process look like? Are you going to make concessions on, okay, if we move to a salary cap, we're willing to go 5 years of arbitration instead of the current model, which is you've got control for 6 years in this system? Will we allow guys that are in their 30s to get to free agency sooner because of their age? How exactly are we going to calculate this against the cap? Are we going by the collective bargaining tax, the CBT, or are we going to go with what the actual AAV is? Because if you don't do that, then you just keep that hole open for the Dodgers where they can put a whole bunch of deferrals in it, and they can make Ohtani a $10 million cap hit, So they didn't. I'm a little surprised they didn't clean up some of the details in that proposal, but I'm all in favor of what the owners are trying to do and try and get this towards a cap sport.
So this was the response from the Players Association yesterday, and I'll just read a couple of snippets of it here. The owners responded today with a demand for a salary cap system, something generations of players have fought against. The last time owners made such an explicit push for a cap, over 30 years ago, it led to the longest work stoppage in MLB history. For generations, our members have fought against cap systems because they harm players at all levels, erode or eliminate contractual guarantees, pit players against player, lead to more work stoppages, not less, and get worse for players over time. Caps don't lower ticket prices for fans, eliminate tanking, or ensure teams are run with equal competence. They suffocate competition by offering owners an all-purpose excuse for inaction and mediocrity. So that gives you a little bit of the tone of how angry the Players Association was for this salary cap. Here's the part that I didn't agree with, and I read this in Evan Drelich's piece that the players' side had to say afterwards, talking about if you look at other leagues that have the salary cap, there's a lot of infighting that takes place. And that's the part that I just don't agree with. Now, the NBA has their own issues. I mean, Adam Silver's coming out every day trying to find a way to avoid tanking, and they're penalizing teams with the tanking. But, man, the NHL is as healthy as it has been since 2004. Well, I guess since 2012 when they had that shortened season. But that's when the new salary cap had taken over. And, I mean, they are flourishing right now. The NFL is in a great position with their salary cap system that they have in place. And if Major League Baseball wants to be more like that, it seems you'd look at those teams and say, well, there's not a lot of infighting going on with NHL and NFL. It seems like everybody's getting paid, everybody's getting their money, the system is working. And the other part that they put into this, that say caps don't lower ticket prices for fans, they eliminate tanking or ensure teams are run with equal competence. I don't think fans are worried about the beer prices going up or hot dog prices going up. Like, yes, that is concerning, and people aren't wanting to go spend a buku amount of money at ballparks when they go. The concern is going to the ballpark if your team isn't competitive. And, yeah, somebody texted in on our Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. If the floor is only going to $171 million and the cap is at $300, does that even matter if those teams are only spending $75 more million to try and compete with the Mets and the Dodgers and Braves that are spending to the cap? Look at the Miami Marlins, who are spending $88 million and add $90 million to their payroll. It's hard to be that bad if you're paying guys $90 million. So, yeah, I do think it raises that floor of teams that aren't trying to compete. It forces them to spend money, which is something you pointed out, that the owners were all of a sudden like, hey, everybody can afford $171 million. That's a little bit of a deeper issue with this stuff, but I know the players are trying to make their stance strong, but to sit there and act as if, oh, well, it's just going to hurt baseball more than what it is, it's thriving right now. There's no question. but it's thriving because you haven't seen a low market or small market team win a World Series since 2015.
Yeah, and I think, look, I understand what the texter was saying about, well, does $75 million really matter when you still have the Dodgers, Mets, and them that will be spending up to the cap? It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt them to add another $75 million to where instead of talking about trading Sandy Alcantara for the last 3 years since he signed that contract extension, he's probably guaranteed to be a Marlin unless they're decide to sell off. But it's about closing that gap in the payroll. I mean, there's like $400 million is the difference between the Dodgers and the Marlins right now.
Right.
That's ridiculous. What Major League Baseball is trying to do is, okay, can we go from 400 to like 200? Is there still more ground to be made up there? Absolutely. Yes, there is. But you want to try and close that gap so it can help with the competitive balance issue. And I'm with you. Look, the NHL, NBA, NFL, those leagues are thriving right now. And they've got those salary cap situations. You know, the NBA's got kind of the softer ceiling where they've got the luxury tax, but they've got a floor to it.
Yeah.
So I think this is the best thing for baseball, and I think someone on the text line brought this up. Sticky Ricky brought up, I seriously doubt the mouthpiece of the players' union is really representing all of the players. The guys that are really adamant against this are the guys that are making the big bucks.
The Bryce Harpers, the
Harper who
Shohei
got the
Ohtani,
face.
Mookie Betts.
Because if there's anybody that will be affected by this, it is definitely the guys that are at the top of the market because it will cap them off. I mean, you can look at the NHL and you can look at like the Nathan McKinnons, the Connor McDavids, and the Cale Makars, and you can realistically say, okay, those guys are a little underpaid, right? Yeah. I mean, there's even a fair argument that LeBron, who always has been going through those one-year deals with player options, getting like $60 million a year, you can make an argument that he's underpaid in the league. So that definitely is something that I know is a frustration point for the players. But I would think if I'm the PA, I'm looking at this going, man, the middle class for the PA,
they're going to get taken care of.
They're going to get a lot better. They're going to get improvements here because it's been very stagnant across the sport. You look across all other three major professional leagues in the U.S., that middle class, that mid-tier of free agency has slowly been going up. Meanwhile, in baseball, it's been stagnant the whole time. And that is where the cap would really help them out. Sure, it does hurt those guys up at the top. Those guys are still going to be taken care of, right? The superstars still get paid. They're still going to be the top-end guys, and they're still going to be fine. They're probably still going to be in that $30 to $40 million AAV
And
range.
guess what? Those teams then just can't pay 7 or 8 or 9 of those top players all $30 million. You only get 1 or 2 of them, or 3 of them if you want to jeopardize the bottom of what your team looks like, because that's the biggest thing you pointed out. Yeah, guys like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Nathan McKinnon are underpaid compared to what Bryce Harper and Shohei Ohtani are getting paid right now. But it's also keeping things competitive to where there's teams that always have a chance to beat you down. So here's the other question I think people really need to have themselves think about when we're going through all of this for the next 7 months. Are you okay missing games so that you can get a salary cap? Because everything I'm seeing on the Air Comfort Service text line right now, 314-399-9646. Our YouTube chat, St. Lunatic 92 said the PA is 100% wrong in this one. I think a lot of people, if not 99% of people that are fans of baseball, agree a salary cap would make things better. Are you cool with missing an entire season? Because as this thing has already started, the PA is putting their foot in the ground saying we're not doing a cap. That means this thing is going to drag out and more than likely is going to miss games in 2027. How much and how bad do you want a salary cap?
Yeah, I think if the owners are serious about this, I think you're talking about missing significant games. Like, I think you're talking about going till like July to get this done. I say now that I'm cool with that. I don't know how I would feel about that when we are trying to come up with content in April and we don't have opening day for it. But I think that's what it's going to take to get a salary cap. So if you're in favor of a cap, I think you have to be rooting for the owners then to be willing to put their foot down, because the players are going to hold out thinking that the owners are going to cave. And I still am in the belief, though I think we should have a cap, I think the owners are going to cave at some point, and they're going to go with maybe this soft floor idea that the Players Association has, or they're just going to keep it mostly intact. Because it is going to be brutal for the league to miss a bunch of games if they want to hold out for this cap. That's why I don't think they're ultimately going to do it, but I would be in favor of it. I am team owner in this negotiation.
I am too, and I think they should hold out. I think they should jeopardize. I don't think you should cave on this one. I think a salary cap is good. I know baseball is great now. I think if you get more teams that feel like they have a shot at winning a World Series every year, it makes everybody want to jump on board with it, and I think it makes it better for the long run. And again, I would just cite what the NHL and the NFL have. It sure seems like they're in a really good spot because of where they're at in terms of the salary cap and the escrow and the 50% revenue share. They seem they're healthy. I think baseball should look at that one to even make them healthier than where they are at right now. Tanner Henderickson, Eric Harkey with us as BK is out for one more day. He'll be back with us on Monday. We got a good show today. BT is going to join us in about 15 minutes. Mike McKenna, Macadoodle Mike, joins us in the 12 o'clock hour, and plenty more baseball conversation along the way. But let's switch over to hockey next, because I was listening to a podcast from a show up in Buffalo that were talking about trading for Jordan Kyrou. And it sure seems like there's better value from other teams than what Blues fans may have on Jordan Kyrou. So does that make Buffalo the ideal trading partner? We'll discuss next here on 101 ESPN. with Tanner Henderickson and Eric Harkey. I'm Alex Ferrario. We got BT coming up in about 15 minutes or so. If you want to join in on the conversation, you could do so. Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. Also our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. Our studio cams brought to you by the Air Alliance team. It's 11:20. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. So I was driving home yesterday after the show, and somebody tweeted to me and said, hey, apparently Buffalo Radio was talking about Jordan Kyrou and how they'd be willing to trade multiple assets to acquire Jordan Kyrou. So you know me, T-Bone, my ears prick up immediately because
I was curious how you got this when you sent it to me.
Well, actually, I need to find out what the Twitter handle's name is that sent it to me. But that's what kind of caught my attention. And I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I'll go check this out and find out. So it's from the Jeremy and Joe show up in Buffalo. And if people remember correctly, last season there was conversation of Buffalo and St. Louis trying to make a trade to where Kyrou was involved. And that's when Peterka's name was brought up. It went to Utah. And, of course, the Blues went with the Montreal trade. And then at the deadline, we saw Parayko's name and Thomas's name connected. So it makes sense that Buffalo's here. So this was Jeremy and Joe talking about the potential of Buffalo acquiring Kyrou this offseason.
I'm getting my Tuck replacement, and I'm doing it at a price tag that I think is really good. Like 5 years, $8.1 million per year. That's great. Now, it's going to cost me a lot to not pay as much money and to get 2 years younger at the position. Like, we talked about what it would cost. There are two different reports, one from Jeremy Rutherford, one from Bruce Garrioch, that it would be a high-end player, a first-round pick, and a prospect. So I am definitely paying King's ransom, Garrioch, I think, described it as. But what's a better idea? You want to trade assets to save money and get younger? Or do you want to not trade assets and give Tuck a giant contract? So
in that conversation, you know, this individual that was talking highly about how Buffalo should go after Connor Hellebuck. That was their number one desire this offseason because I need goaltending help. And he changed it in this one and said, I like this idea better. And I bring this up, T-Bone, because I think there's this narrative that Kyrou's not worth anything on the market. From what that Buffalo radio host is talking about, they're willing to pay the price to get a Jordan Kyrou if they don't bring back Alex Tuck. And if that's what you can acquire for a Jordan Kyrou, a first-round pick, a high-level prospect, and an NHL player. I think the player that they talked about was Ryan McLeod from Buffalo. He's 26 years old. He was formerly with the Edmonton Oilers. He scored 50 points for them this year. Very good defensively. Probably at best a third or second-line center, but right in the tier of what you believe Dalibor Dvorsky can become. And then they mentioned Radim Murtka, the defenseman that was rumored to be a part of the Parayko deal and a first-round pick. If that's the kind of offer you get for a Jordan Kyrou, this could be a massive offseason for the Blues, but I do think it paints the picture of what other teams are willing to pay for this asset that you have.
Yeah, I think it's the latest reminder that Kyrou is a valuable asset across the NHL because, I mean, look at him. He's a 30-goal scorer on a contract that's very team-friendly, as you heard them say. And the fact that they bring up Alex Tuck, Tuck's going to get more than Jordan Kyrou this offseason. So if you're a team like the Sabers, and look, I saw someone on the text line scream at us that, you know, he's not going to Buffalo. This isn't the point on if he's going to Buffalo. It's more of the point of, hey, there are a lot of teams that are going to value Jordan Kyrou across the league this year. He's a valuable asset. This is one of those scenarios where I think BK brings it up all the time, which is if we hadn't seen the player play and you just looked at the hockey reference card, you would be saying, boy, that guy seems like a really good hockey player. 30 goals, had a weird year. Maybe we can buy low on him potentially. That's the kind of conversation that's going on across the board. And it just screams, I don't know if it's going to be Kyrou that will be going to Buffalo or there'll be other conversations that will lead to the Sabres getting involved with somebody for the St. Louis Blues. I feel like they've been eye-flirting with each other for a while now. You know, it's been, 2 straight years that we've had conversations.
They keep sending the you up text, but nobody follows through. Because, like you mentioned, it was Kyrou last offseason for Peterka. And then at the trade deadline, it was, okay, they're talking around Thomas, and they were talking about Thomas and Parayko. Then they got the deal done for Parayko before he nixed it. It does feel like the Sabres are a team that's going to be targeting the St. Louis Blues. And I wouldn't doubt that they would be targeting potentially Jordan Kyrou. And as you've made mention, there's plenty of pieces that could make a ton of sense for the St. Louis Blues. Yeah, somebody over on the YouTube chat, The Graveyard, IROC, says, why would they want another winger? They need to move Tage Thompson to the wing. Yes, they need another center, and they'd prefer to do that. But as they talked about on the show on Buffalo Radio yesterday that I was listening to, they're content if they have to play Tage Thompson at the center position, if they get somebody who's a difference maker. And I think right now they're battling with, do we sign Alex Tuck to $12 million, who's 30 or 29 years old, versus trade for a guy for a lot of assets that aren't going to make our NHL roster to get somebody that's good for us right now. And the Ryan McLeod I find fascinating. I've brought him up in the past on this show. You know, that's a 26-year-old centerman who's the same age as Robert Thomas. I don't think he's anything more than a second or a third line center. But if you're getting a young player and you're getting a centerman that adds to the depth of your team, then you strike while the iron's hot there. And that's where the Blues seem to find themselves with right now, with all of these pieces that can be available to them. And if there's teams that are that desperate to get Jordan Kyrou, and look, there's going to be teams that are desperate for offense because this free agency market does not provide it. This is where I think the Blues and Buffalo Sabres make really good trade partners. It's just a matter of what are they willing to move and what do they want from the Blues. I have to imagine they're going to talk about Robert Thomas again. I have to imagine they're going to talk about Colton Parayko again. Maybe not as much because Parayko turned them down, but now there's more time to think this through if the trade conversations come up. So while we're in the midst of this, the other thing we were going to talk about is the Robert Thomas conversation. And it's fascinating that this thing just popped up on my Twitter account. Somebody sent it over to me, Keith, who also sent me the one about Buffalo yesterday. So yesterday, David Pagnotta, Keith is on it right now. Keith is just all over the market in terms of the hockey world. Pagnotta said yesterday on TSN radio that he thinks Utah's going to circle back on Robert Thomas. So Darren Dreger apparently this morning on TSN radio 1050 said that he wonders, and this isn't him saying he's heard it, he wonders if the Toronto Maple Leafs would trade the first overall draft pick for Colton Parayko and Robert Thomas. I don't know where people stand on this, because in the scenario that Darren Dreger painted, you're getting an elite goaltending prospect back in the number one overall pick for Thomas and Parayko. You're not trading any of your other picks. You're going to have the first pick, the 11th, the 15th, and the 29th. That's a hell of a trade if Toronto's trying to do it. I got to be honest, T-Bone, I don't think I do that trade.
Not even for one?
Not even for one. Because one is going to be a winger, and you are still now going to be without a number one center, and you're not drafting one of those guys in this draft. So you make that trade that Darren Dreger brought up, you're in a full-blown rebuild. That's even more of a rebuild than if Utah came back to the table and offered up two of their three best prospects that are centermen. That leads to the point of, I'm not trading Robert Thomas. This offseason, it's not happening. As much as I think people are going to talk about it and speculate about it, no more Robert Thomas talk, because you are unable to acquire that number one center on the other side, and you need that for the growth of Snuggerud and Dylan Holloway.
Would you even listen, or are you just immediately hanging up the phone?
I'd see if I can negotiate a different way. Can we take Thomas out of this conversation? Can we add picks? Can we add players, prospects? But Thomas is not happening. And a ton of people are saying that's a horrible idea. Why would anybody do that? Exactly. This is the first overall pick, T-Bone. And we're saying no to that for Robert Thomas. It's done. People need to be done with it. There's no Robert Thomas trade talk anymore.
Yeah, I would still personally listen. I don't think the Blues are. I think a lot of this is all being some old reporting still getting connected to the Thomas situation. I think I said this yesterday. I think teams are going to look back on they missed their opportunity to trade for Robert Thomas in season. When
yes.
Doug Armstrong was clearly pissed off at the team, wasn't thrilled with what he was saying. There was literally nothing at that point at the trade deadline to point to and say, well, at least this is going well. It wasn't until after that you saw Thomas get paired with Snuggerud and Holloway and that line really take off to make you dream on it. So I think teams miss their opportunity if they are in on Thomas. I personally would still listen, but I'm with you. I don't think Steen and Army are going to. I think if someone calls about Thomas, they're going to go, no, if you want to continue this phone conversation, let's have a conversation about moving a Jordan Kyrou, or they may pivot to a Colton Parayko in a conversation like that. They might be willing to do that since he doesn't necessarily fit the timeline that they've kind of put on the team.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I don't think they're going to be listening on Robert Thomas. Now that they saw what it looked like with Holloway and Snuggerud, and I know Army kind of downplayed it at the end of season presser of, hey, I don't take too much stock into what we did in the second half. I think he's going to want to hang on to that and see what they look like for at least a half of a season.
Now, somebody brought up an interesting scenario. Do you take the first overall pick and do you trade 11 and 15 to try and move up to get Caleb Malhotra or Vijay Bork to where you can draft a centerman that you view as a number one center? Sure, you could. I'm not taking a chance on that guy not being a number one center because, great, you've drafted McKenna or Stenberg. But if you don't have a center, you got nothing. And you've already got a Holloway and a Snuggerud that you're excited about. So I think that just makes it more clear that the Thomas conversation just needs to die off this offseason. There's other guys you can listen on. Obviously, Kyrou, maybe Colton Parayko, Bennington, if there's others. I think Thomas is the non-starter now. And you're right. I think teams missed out on the chance to move for him at the deadline when Doug was a little bit more palatable to listen to that. Tanner Henderickson, Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15 minutes, we'll get to Ask Us Anything. You send us a question, sports or anything else, we'll answer them. Our Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. But coming up next, Brad Thompson, our weekly hit with the Cardinals TV analyst next here on 101 ESPN. Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Classic Air Care, the company that has been making people comfortable since 1926, the company that has been taking care of my dad's HVAC system for as long as I can remember, and that's a long time now that I'm 36, or they've been taking care of my home for the last 10 years that I've been using Classic Air Care, and I had an older unit, a 20-year-old unit that they found a way to keep getting it going for me every single year, and when I had to finally buy a new one, Classic Air Care was the company that I called, and it comes with incredible customer service, technicians that have been doing this job for 30 plus years that always seem to have the answer for you. They're the company that makes you comfortable with the system and with the work that they provide. But don't just believe me. Check out the thousands of 5-star reviews that they have on their Google Plus page, like this one from Antoine. Frank with Classic Air Care was great. It came out very quickly, same day after I called about an issue with our system cutting off, diagnosed the issue, fixed it quickly, explained the issue to me with plain language, professional, prices were reasonable. I would highly recommend. So call them today, schedule online. Just do me a favor, tell them Alex Ferrario sent you, Classic Air Care and classicaircare.com.
Good morning. My name is Aaron Harkey with your Sports Center update brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. The Spurs force a Game 7 last night at home against the Oklahoma City Thunder, 118-91. This Sports Center update was brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
Always love our Friday catch-ups with Brad Thompson, the Cardinals TV analyst, who joins us here on BK and Ferrario every Friday on the Kiley and Thompson hotline. And BT back home for a series against the Cubs on the weekend. Nothing better than that. How are you, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great, Alex. I'm looking forward to it. Long homestand as well, so that'll be good. And hopefully the place is packed this weekend against the Cubs. I expect it'll be a fun scene.
I really feel like, too, BT, this is the ideal time to be taking on the Chicago Cubs. They've gone through their struggles where they lost 10 in a row prior to their last 2. Their pitching is going through a lot of injuries right now. Their offense is scuffled a little bit, and it's an opportunity for the Cardinals to kind of bust the slump that they were in with the Brewers' struggles that they went through.
It is for sure, right? I mean, if you're going to catch the Cubs, I mean, they have been the streakiest team in baseball. It's crazy to believe that in this young of a season, they've had 2 10-game winning streaks and then a 10-game losing streak. Like, that is nuts. And you lay out the injuries perfectly. I mean, they're banged up, especially from a starting pitching standpoint. They've got a few guys on the shelf. But at the end of the day, like, when you're looking at that, yes, you're catching them at the right time. This is a team through May 8th. They were the best team in baseball, best record in baseball the Cubs had. And then since then have struggled. But I still think it just comes down to the Cardinals doing their thing, right? Like figuring their stuff out. Offensively, there's been a lot left on the table recently against the Brewers. That elusive hit was hard to come by. Now, sometimes you do give a little leeway when you're facing a guy like Mizorowski with the numbers that he has. You look at the overall numbers of Kyle Harrison. I mean, those guys have been dealing. But 0 for 17 with runners in scoring position against the Brewers. You look at all of baseball right now, they've got the lowest mark in baseball. I think they're hitting 222 at last check with runners in scoring position. So, yes, you're catching the Cubs at the right time, but the hope is that the Cardinals just kind of click in and start firing a little bit more offensively.
And BT, it's really been that bottom part of the order that's kind of haunted the Cardinals so far this year. 5 through 9 up until that final game against the Brewers, they were last in Major League Baseball in OPS. Do you think it might be about time where they've got some of their younger prospects starting to hit their stride at AAA, whether it be Baez, Jimmy Crooks, Blaze Jordan, that maybe they make some roster moves to try and see if they can lengthen out this lineup a little bit?
Yeah, it's totally above my pay grade for sure. But I don't think that they're rushing. Like this is what they expected this year. They expected ups and downs. Like when you're going to try to find out about a player, you want to find out through the lean times too, right? So offensively, they were one of the best teams in baseball, at least a top 10, top 5 in a lot of categories in March and April. In May thus far, and we're ending, May on Sunday, they have struggled overall offensively. But I think that you kind of want to see who guys are through the highs and through the lows. Now, when does that mark come for certain guys? And, how loud does somebody have to bang on the door to actually be let in? I guess that part of it we'll find out. But the nice part is that you do have options, that you do have some guys that are very, very close to the big leagues. Crooks, obviously, is a guy that's already been there before and is doing nothing but proving himself at AAA. So they've definitely got options. They've definitely got some guys that they want to see in the future. But I still think, and not to harken back to a phrase that was used all the time, but I will anyhow, patience, right? Be patient. Patience is key when you're going through. Again, I get it. They're from what everybody expected, overperforming 5 games over 500 right now. This is going to be a year where they're going to find out about players. So I think they'll give them a lot of rope.
Interesting where you're at now, BT, where you say be patient and people don't get as upset, whereas you said it 5 years ago, man, people hated that phrase.
Oh, I got a feeling some are still a little ticked off about it, but but at least that was the narrative for the season coming into it, right? You kind of knew what to expect coming into 2026.
Yeah.
Almost forgot what year it was right there.
Understandably so. BT, I am kind of curious, when it comes to those guys that are performing in AAA, I have to imagine the Major League guys are focused on their own stuff right now, but when you're going through slumps, whether it be like a Victor Scott or any other player that might be thinking about it's like, oh, shoot, I need to get my stuff together before they send me down. Is that in the back of your mind when those guys are performing in AAA?
Yeah, absolutely it is. Sometimes I'll just speak for myself on this one. I would come into the clubhouse at times and look for suitcases. Like, is there a new suitcase here? Is that a son of a? That's a suitcase. Ah, gosh darn it, somebody's here. And then try to hide in the bathroom, and hopefully nobody could tap me on the shoulder.
Where'd BT go? Oh, he already went down.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can't send him down. We can't find him. All that stuff is in there. So that's the stuff that we don't talk about enough, and I'm glad you bring it up. Like, there is a real human element about this stuff. So pick whatever player you want. You mentioned Vic. Like, Vic has been scuffling at the bat. There is no question about it. There also is, like, nobody that's digging in more than he is and taking more reps in the cage and thinking about it more at home and worrying about these things. Like, this game can consume you. And sometimes, like, the biggest key is to be able to let it go a little bit and be able to just kind of embrace playing and enjoy it. But it's so hard to do when you're thinking about all these other variables after every game. And when you go 0 for 4, you got a microphone in your face, hey, what happened? Or you're hearing or reading a quote about why you're struggling or whatever it is, and you're trying everything to snap out of it, and oftentimes it makes it worse. Like, the more pressure that's there, it just keeps weighing on you. And that's why I really love that, being able to go through like a lot of the mental stuff and talking through that side of baseball that has been embraced more. Back in the day, if you ever talked to somebody from a mental standpoint in baseball, it's like, well, look at him. He's going to the loony bin. He's talking to somebody about his feelings and what he's thinking, right? Now it's more so, okay, like, how do we process these things? How do we focus on one thing at a time? And like, I appreciate that, but it's a very difficult thing to do when you're struggling on the biggest stage. And it's the hardest place ever to make adjustments because guys know what your weaknesses are. They're going to keep firing away. So yeah, man, that weighs on you. And at the end of the day, it should. Like, it is a competitive business. It's not like, hey, you make it to the big leagues, you're here forever. No, you have to be able to perform at this level or somebody will come grab your job. So what do you do with that pressure? Can you fix it? Can you make some of those adjustments at this level? Do you have to go down and work on some things, maybe without all of the microphones and the cameras in your face? Like, there are different ways to do it. But yeah, man, that pressure is real.
BT, I did want to ask you about Matthew Liberatore. He's expected to get the start on Sunday Night Baseball this weekend. With Libby, it almost has felt like it's kind of been to the eye of the beholder. When you look at his numbers, he went 4 2/3 and allowed 4 earned runs against Pittsburgh 2 starts ago. And then in his last start, got hit around in the first inning, then settled in and allowed 3 against the Brewers. But he's got 19 strikeouts in the last 2 starts, and he has 30 swings and misses generated. What have you seen from him over these last 2 starts, and do you think he's maybe found something to generate a little bit more swing and miss in his game?
Yeah, I do, man. I do. And you're right. Back-to-back performances where he set career highs in strikeouts for Libby. And when you're just looking at some of the numbers, when you're digging into spin rate, he spun the ball better in the last couple of outings, both his curveball and slider, than he has at all in his career. And he's been maintaining it. I think there's trust in that pitch. He's just gripping and ripping it, talking to him. He's not trying to make it break more. He's just letting it eat. And there is something in that real confidence of throwing those pitches when you need to. But to your point of the big inning, right, whether it's the first inning where you give up 3 or it's the 5th inning where you give up some 2 times ago, it's a tale of 2 outings oftentimes. Like, man, the Pirates won 2 outings ago. It's like, that's the best I've ever seen him. And then that 5th inning came, and it was like base hit, walk, like a couple of things happen, and then it snowballed. So it's just trying to figure those ones out, and then last time out trying to settle in after that first inning. But, man, I've been super encouraged with what we've seen from Matthew Liberatore. I know you can look at the overall numbers, and you laid it out perfectly. Like, they look fine, right? The numbers look fine. But when you actually watch him go about it and you're watching game to game with Libby, I feel like it's looking better and better. It's just piecing that dominance together and not having that hiccup of an inning for him. But I've been super encouraged. Again, he's only 26 years old. I still got a lot of upside in that arm of his, and I think he's just still learning along the way. He's actually one of my favorite guys. I enjoy talking to him and McGreevy both about pitching, because these guys really dig in to their craft, and whether it's sequencing or just how they're gripping things or the thought process second or third time through, just a real student of it. And I think you're going to see Libby and McGreevy, both of them, just continue to get better and better.
We got a couple more minutes with Brad Thompson, Cardinals TV analyst, who's with us here on BK and Ferrario. BT, just on the pitching front as a whole, with Liberatore and what Dustin May did against the Brewers, which was just so frustrating to see how it ended, but man, what a performance that was. And then with Michael McGreevy as well, you're seeing more and more swing and miss stuff for these guys. Are you optimistic that that's going to keep climbing this season for the pitching staff?
Man, I hope so, right? I mean, these guys, to this point, there is an evolution. We just talked about it with Liberatore. You're going to find different ways to unlock stuff, and he's definitely unlocked some swing and miss. But in large part, there's still not a huge strikeout staff. But you hope that in whether it's refining some more of their pitches or creative ways of sequencing and not falling into patterns, that you miss more of them. I don't believe that this is going to overnight turn into a staff that just punches tickets left and right. That's not going to be them. There's still going to be a pitch to contact. They're going to be off the barrel. It's going to be utilizing the defense. But the pitching has been a real shining part of this ball club, especially in May, because we talked about the offense has struggled right in the month of May. Well, the pitching staff has been able to keep you afloat. The Cardinal starters have done a really good job in the month. They got an ERA in the mid threes, I believe, for the starting staff, and that is a far cry from where it was early. So the group continues to get better and better. They've been very healthy, which is awesome. I was so excited for Dustin and for the Cardinals for the performance again. It was a crappy way to end it. You don't expect to lose that when you got a no-hit bid through 7, and then you end up losing a ball game 2-1. Man, that sucks. But he looked fantastic, and he looked like it was in total control. The sweeper was nasty. He had guys way off balance. He was blowing fastballs by guys with 2 strikes, just really sequenced well and just looked in total control. So hopefully we see more and more of that out of May. Hopefully tonight with Andre Palante, he goes and he deals just like he did last time out. I think he went 6-2 hits against the Reds, and he's a ground ball machine. Shoto Imanaga has been beat up badly over his last 2 starts. So a couple of trends we hope continue this evening and through the weekend against the Cubbies.
Hey, BT, before we let you go, man, I am just curious. I know you've seen all of the stuff over the last couple of days with the ongoing labor negotiations. Has anything stuck out to you and kind of where you think things are at right now?
Well, the main thing that sticks out to me is the fact that there are at least talks going on, because I really thought, and all of the signs were pointing towards these two sides were not going to even speak until there was a lockout on December 1st, right? So the fact that there's dialogue, that there's a little bit of back and forth, I think that's very encouraging. We all know this. Nobody wants to hear millionaires and billionaires fight. That's the worst thing. Yeah, it's the worst thing that you could possibly do for your sport, right? Yep. And Major League Baseball as a whole is doing really, really well. I mean, the attendance was up across the board. Viewership was up across the board last year. The sport is continuing to grow. You can't shoot yourself in the foot. You cannot do it. It would be the worst freaking business move ever to do that. So I'm encouraged by the fact that there are talks early on. You know that we all know the biggest sticking points for both sides. One side wants a cap, other side absolutely doesn't want it. That's pretty enormous sticking point. But at least there are conversations early, so you can start working through these things. Because any good negotiation, both of you guys are going to walk away, whether it's the union or MLB, you're going to walk away feeling like you lost something. That's just kind of how these things go. So we'll, hopefully that ends up being the case. They figure it out, because baseball fans don't need another reason to not watch baseball and find something else to do.
Yep, I remember that during the hockey one back in 2011. My dad had season tickets, and he was so pissed off during that whole negotiation. So it's not a fun thing to put the fans through, without question. BT, always great stuff, man. Have fun this weekend with the Cards and Cubs, and we'll talk next Friday.
All right, guys. Have a great weekend. I'll see you then.
There you go. Brad Thompson with us on the Collier and Thompson hotline with us here on BK and Ferrario. Tanner Henderickson, Eric Harkey. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up in 15, Macadoodle Mike is going to join us to talk playoffs and all the rumors that continue floating around the NHL and St. Louis Blues. But coming up next, ask us anything. You send us a question, sports or anything else, 314-399-9646. We'll answer them next here on 101 ESPN. $314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You can also do so over on the Graveyard Chat on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL, along with Tanner Henderickson and Eric Harkey. It's time for our Friday staple, which is Ask Us Anything, which is very different from questions and answers, because you can ask us anything, T-Bone, and you have to answer it. It's a rule that we mandated in BK and Ferrario. That's not true. First one up, did you guys see the injury to Oscar Sundqvist yesterday over in the World Championship? Did you see any of this?
I didn't see it. I saw someone send a text in about it.
So he went knee on knee with Tomas Hertl, I believe is who it was. And Sundqvist had to be helped off the ice, and I think there was video of him having to be wheelchaired out of the stadium. Now, some of that's just precaution to make sure that, nothing else gets injured, but I hope that's not true. I don't think the Blues are re-signing him, but man, you talk about a guy whose body has gone through the gauntlet for the last 9 years in the NHL. He just was starting to feel better and more like himself with all those knee injuries. So I hope that's not the case. I have to imagine he went to the World Tournament to kind of up his free agency to where somebody may take a chance on him. And man, if an injury like that happens, God, you hate to see that for Oscar Sundqvist.
Yeah, that sucks, because I think you're spot on. I think he went there to try and help boost his market potentially for the upcoming offseason. I'm with you. I don't think the Blues are re-signing him, but it'd been nice to see him get on with somebody, serve as like a fourth line center like he did for the Blues. And hopefully this isn't serious to where it's going to hurt his market.
From the 314, do you guys expect Lars Nootbaar to be activated today prior to first pitch?
Nope. I don't. Ollie had said something earlier in the week or last weekend, I think it was, to where they want him to play a full game in the outfield and play back back-to-back before he's activated, and I don't believe he's done that just yet. My guess is if he's activated, it's either for the Texas series next week, or I think what's more likely is it's going to be the following weekend when I think it's the Reds come to town, if I'm not mistaken. But I think it's next weekend when they'll probably be activated, be my guess.
Yeah, I think you want a little bit longer of his rehab stint before you go out there and just activate him and say, let's get this thing going. Like T-Bone mentioned yesterday, they view this as his spring training, and you need a little bit more time throughout that spring training. From the 314, can you guys see the Blues trading for Mertka without trading Parayko away? Would Jiricek start in the minors? So this goes to the conversation we had about the Buffalo Sabres one. Yeah, I mean, if they were to trade for Mertka, he may start in the minors, because he hasn't played in the American Hockey League, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe he had a couple of games this year for Buffalo in there. Yeah, so he played 8 games this season at the end of the year for them in the AHL, just like Adam Jiricek were. Somebody is starting in the minors, because you're not going to keep Mayu, Mertka, Jiricek, and Parayko if you don't move Parayko. My guess is if they trade for Mertka, Parayko's probably getting moved in another deal.
Yeah.
And they're just going to go young on the defensive side.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Would you be willing to do, I know we were talking in the last, or 2 segments ago, about Kyrou potentially being traded to Buffalo. If you couldn't get the McLeod, the center, would you be willing to do Kyrou for Mertka and a first?
Say that again?
Would you be willing to do Kyrou for Mertka and like a first?
Probably, because then I'd use Parayko as the piece to get me the forward. And I'm getting another first-round pick in this year or next year's draft. Yeah, I probably would. I mean, look, if I can get a 9th overall pick and another first-rounder for Jordan Kyrou.
They may not put the first in there. Like, it could just be Mertka for Kyrou straight up. Would you do it?
I think I'd still do that. I mean, that's a hell of a return for you, and I know people aren't going to like that because Mertka may not be here right away, but, man, that's the long play, and that guy's 6'5", a 9th overall pick. By the way, I need to correct myself. Hurdle is in the playoffs. It was Timo Meyer that did it, who was playing for Germany.
Like Hurdle was the right
I knew it was
there.
a former San Jose Shark. I just didn't remember which one of those. Those two guys kind of go hand in hand. Let's see here. From the manager, Lou Brown. Guys, do you see a scenario where the Royals trade Bobby Witt Jr. at the trade deadline?
Nope.
Oh, why would they do that?
He's the franchise pillar for him. He's on a long-term contract, the kind of thing that the Royals don't typically do. They're going to build that team around Bobby Witt. They'll sell pieces off, and they may make some changes to that core in the offseason, but they're not going to trade Bobby Witt.
Yeah, there's just no way. Like, the only reason people are going to the ballpark for the Kansas City Royals are for Bobby Witt Jr., because they haven't been winning. So, yeah, there's no chance that I'm doing that one. From the 636, guys, if Monty or Steen called and asked Craig Berube would he consider a spot within the Blues organization, do you think he would accept it? I guess it depends on the spot. I don't think Craig Berube is taking a job as an assistant coach. I think if I'm Craig Berube, I take a year off and I go do television, and somebody's going to call me. We know how the NHL works. They take chances on these guys. If we're talking about like a consultant or a scout, yeah, maybe for a year. But I think there will always be a chance of him going back to being a head coach, and I just don't see him wanting or having any appetite to be an assistant coach for the Blues.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I think it'd be more likely he'd go TV route. He's got the in with Turner Sports because he was with TNT, what was that, 2 years ago, 3 years ago at this point? And he was good on the panel. So I think it's more likely, if anything, if he's not a head coach, he goes and works in TV, or he just takes a year off and then gets back, because you're right. Once you win a cup as a head coach, you get to bounce around for a very long time, as we've seen.
Yeah. Ledoux Lawn Boy, what athlete were you nervous to interview?
All of them.
T-Bone,
Brad Thompson.
Do you still get nervous interviewing athletes?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I get very nervous interviewing athletes still.
I think my nerves come in sports to where I don't feel like I'm the smartest at it, if that makes sense. Like, I can interview anyone with hockey because I feel like I know the sport. I feel like I can interview baseball players because I feel like I understand the sport. NFL players, when the Rams were here and I used to cover it for KMOX, man, that was intimidating. Because, like, I like football.
Those guys are huge.
They're huge. I don't feel like I know what I'm talking about. So here's this little scrawny, skinny, 6'1" kid that's interviewing this 7-foot offensive lineman that's been doing it for 12 years. I did an interview with Wes Welker, if people remember that, when he was with the Rams.
God, he was a Ram.
And I was so intimidated because I think he had just won a Super Bowl, or it was a couple of years prior. I was so nervous because I was like, I don't know what I got to get something, but I don't want to talk to this guy and be like, who's this idiot? So that's probably where mine were at. It's just athletes of sports that I don't feel like I understand the sport as well to interview them with.
Yeah, and that would be like the thing for me too. Like I can talk hockey, but it's not one where I feel as confident in it as like baseball, for example. So baseball, I feel comfortable like having a conversation with people around the Cardinals. Hockey is the one where it's difficult, and the most nervous I've been for one, and I've only been doing this for 5 years at this point. But
you're a grizzled vet by now.
What year did we go to the draft? 2023.
Yeah.
And I remember it was, hey, I got to stick here at
the
Bridgestone
hotel.
Arena.
Oh, yeah.
And I had to go to the introductory press conference with Kevin Hayes. That wasn't the part I was nervous about. It was you get to do a one-on-one interview with Doug Armstrong.
You did 3 minutes with Doug.
I did, and it was the most terrifying 3 minutes of my life.
You did great with that one, too, but I can understand that, especially with people that have power in sports. Oh, man, it is intimidating. Final one, and then we'll get to Macadoodle Mike on the other side. From the 636, do you guys think it won't be until the All-Star break when we see the Memphis shuttle start to make trips up and down I-55?
Yeah, I think
the shuttle will happen with bullpen arms and other pieces that could help. I just think the big names, you're not going to see them until the All-Star break.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm being honest. I think whatever they deem they think Baez is ready, they might bring him up here to play center. I'm not sure.
I think he's the first one and might be the only one that gets that call up. If they haven't done Jimmy Crooks by now, I don't think they're going to unless an injury happens. And Blaze Jordan, they got the 40-man roster to deal with.
Yeah. I don't have a great sense on this. Like I don't think they call it Baez because the fact that they like defense first in center field, and they still seem high on Scott. And we'll see on what Torres looks like. I think you're going to see some opportunities for Torres in center a couple of times moving forward. So I don't know if they're comfortable going to a guy that, as Kyle told us yesterday, maybe not polished enough to be playing center field at the big leagues, but could play a corner. And then, like, Blaze Jordan, the same thing. How do they feel about him defensively at third base? You know, Jimmy Crooks, they don't really have a spot for him. Like, I lean towards, the Texas probably right. It's probably post-All-Star break. It might even be post-trade deadline.
Probably
but
more likely.
Baez keeps hitting like this, man. It's going to be hard to keep him down. 5 home runs the last 3 days. He's now been able to boost up his OPS against right-handed pitching down in Memphis, which he hadn't been doing of late. And now you've got him suddenly where he's leading the minor leagues in home runs in the month of May. That's hard to keep down for a bottom of your order that's been very much struggling.
Yeah, we'll get more into that at 12:15 today, or 12:30 today, talking about the Cardinals start calling up these kids, because T-Bone's right, man. Baez just continues to dominate, but I still just don't know what the Cardinals view as the right time to do so. Coming up in 15, what would a salary cap mean for the Cardinals rebuild in terms of their timeline and what they do? We'll get into that, but coming up next, Macadoodle Mike McKenna joins us next here on 101 ESPN.
We've all seen it, the St. Louis forecast that goes from warm to sweltering overnight. Scott Lee Heating Company has been the name families trust to beat the heat for over 4 decades. As a Mitsubishi Electric Elite contractor, Scott Lee knows that preventative maintenance is the secret to a worry-free season. Tune up your AC before the next heat wave strikes. Scott Lee, a Mitsubishi Electric Elite contractor. Call 314-756-9444 or head to scottleeheating.com today. Stay cool, stay safe.
The Scott Lee way. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Every Friday, we get the opportunity to talk with our favorite former NHL goaltender, but more importantly, he is known best as Macadoodle Mike here on BK and Ferrario, and he joins us now on the Callier and Thompson hotline, along with Tanner Henderickson and Eric Harkey. I'm Alex Ferrario. Mike, how are you, buddy?
Doing pretty good. It's been an interesting day. Had a great morning on the slab. You know, we've been playing our morning hockey at Webster for the last couple of months because Kirkwood Ice Arena is being renovated. So had a lot of fun there, but was a little bit somber though, fellas. This morning was hit pretty hard with the news of Claude Lemieux, and I don't know if you guys have touched on it, but it's pretty sad day from a pretty amazing hockey player to learn that he took his own life at the age of 60, and just really sad, man. That kind of had us all bummed out, but we had a great skate and managed to enjoy some hockey regardless.
Yeah, we mentioned it yesterday that he passed away, but we didn't find out until later on in the afternoon/evening yesterday that it was passing away, took his own life, which, just another PSA reminder for people to make sure you talk to somebody and check in on people that you care about. Just out of curiosity, Mike, was Claude Lemieux a guy that you idolized growing up, got to watch a lot play? Did you ever, I don't think you ever played at the same time that he played, but did you have crossings with him?
A little bit here and there. I mean, I definitely didn't like the guy, and I mean that in a good way.
Yeah.
He's kind of like a Pat Verbeek. He wore the black hat. He was an enemy.
Yeah.
And but somebody you just respected how hard he played. And it's funny, they all called him the Pep. Everybody called him Pep, and it's a really funny nickname for a guy. But he almost made a comeback to play for the Phoenix Roadrunners in the ECHL. He was skating with that team when I was playing for the Las Vegas Wranglers of the ECHL in like 2005. And he almost came back and played, but he was practicing with no helmet on. And we're all watching this 4-time Stanley Cup winner practice with no helmet on with a bunch of ECHL guys. And so that was one cross. And then the other part was his son, Brendan, being an NHL and a minor league guy for a while and having played against him. So we had that, and it just really makes you think. I mean, like Lemieux carried the torch at the game in Montreal just a few days ago. And I can feel this. This is real. Like, you go from being on the ultimate high to right back to the real world. And I can understand how hard that is. It's that feeling of, man, I used to be somebody. And he still was. But you don't feel like that in your own mind sometimes, that, you've lost it. You guys still call me NHL goalie. Well, I run a beverage store now, So I know that feeling, and it can be really hard for people coming away from the game.
Absolutely. So, best wishes, because I know his son was playing overseas in Europe, and I believe his son was the one that found him as well. So just make sure you're talking to people that you care about and the ones that you love and checking in on them. And if you are dealing with any of that, make sure you tell somebody, because everybody is there to help rather than what they feel like, which is alone. So, Mike, on the NHL playoff side of things, we haven't really talked since the Avalanche got swept, which I'm not sure anybody really expected in this front. And then later tonight, you got the Carolina Hurricanes that are about to end this series against Montreal. One side of that conversation I expected with Carolina. Boy, I did not expect to see Colorado fall flat on their faces like they did against Vegas.
I thought that was going to be a great series, and it wasn't. It was a bad series. Now, on the flip side, you look over at Carolina and Montreal, and it's been incredibly lopsided, but you have seen a lot of passion in that series. What it really says to me about Colorado, and I remember this years ago, I've always maintained that Cale Makar is the MVP of that team. It's not Nathan McKenna. And I've had people in hockey roll their eyes at me at that, tell me I'm crazy, and my only response is I'm a goalie. And as a goalie, your closest buddies are your defensemen, and you know how important they are. And having mobile defensemen that can make things go for you is everything. And I think even with Makar clearly not at 100% and missing games. You hate to pin it on one person, but he's just such a driving factor. And when you look at the other side of it with Vegas, they have 3 puck-moving defensemen. You know, they've got Theodore and Hannafin and Anderson, Rasmus Anderson, who they traded for right at the trade deadline for Calgary. You just couldn't get the puck in the neutral zone, get it away from Vegas. They were just that good against Colorado, and Colorado didn't have an answer for it. It was really surprising.
Mike, as a former NHL goalie, I'm curious your thoughts on this. With the potential of the Blues maybe moving Colton Parayko and maybe bringing Adam Juracek along on opening night, you could be looking at an extremely young defensive core with the St. Louis Blues if they decided to go that route, to where you would have Juracek, Mailloux, Broberg, who's still young, even though he kind of comes off as a wily veteran, and then Lindstein as well. What would that be like for a goaltender like Joel Hofer and Jordan Binnington to have such a young defense in front of them, and what do you think of that idea?
Well, the public forward answer is going to be, well, we believe in each other. We know we can do it. We're all in this together. And the behind-the-scenes goalies only talk is, this is not it. And this is not a talent thing. This is an experience thing. I'd be shocked if the Blues didn't backfill. Even if they were to move Colton Parayko, now you're talking about needing, in my eyes, to backfill with 2 further defensemen to make that happen. I mean, I still think the Blues, given where they are to get to the playoffs, need another player besides Parayko on the back end to make this go. And, you know, you've got Fowler there, but I think you still need one more. So I would be so nervous going into a season and looking at a D-core in front of me that, despite liking them, despite knowing their talent, despite knowing they're all going to be great players, you're always going to have at least someone in the ice that makes you nervous. And, you know, we kind of saw that at the end where, you know, you get Juracek moving around, he's freewheeling, and it looks great. But, boy, one bad pinch and it's the other direction. And it's exactly what Montreal is facing right now. I think you would see a version of Montreal in the Blues. Montreal plays with a ton of grit. They're on top of the puck. They're aggressive, but they're just so sloppy. And it's an experience thing. They're just not there yet with the maturity of the team.
Out of curiosity with that, Mike, because I think a lot of people are anticipating Juracek to make the NHL team next year. Same with Theo Lindstein for how well he looked down the stretch. If they were to keep Parayko and have Fowler and Broberg and, like you mentioned, finding another veteran that could play in there, where are you looking at? Are you looking at the left side to play with the second pair and then Lindstein being the extra? Or are you looking on the right side and maybe Juracek starts in the AHL?
Well, I don't want to speak for the youngest guys as your 7th defenseman, but we've already seen that with, you know, Kessel last year. You kind of get lost in the mix a little bit when you don't have an opportunity to actually play either. So, you know, for me, I ultimately – I just don't believe that you can learn on the job in the NHL. I think you need to be ready when you get there. Things can happen. You can learn when you get there. You get a valuable experience when a franchise is short players towards the end of the season, and it can matter. I'm not sold on Juracek right off the bat. I thought Lindstein did well, but wasn't – I mean, he's still not a layup to be a full-time NHL player next season. So I think you got to backfill to get – like I said, you got to have pairings where you're not relying on your 5-6 pair. Remember last year when we were looking at Mailloux and Tucker as a pair. You can't have that. You have to have strength through all 3 pairs. So if it means Lindstein, if it means Juracek, if it means both of them going back to the American Hockey League, I'm totally fine with that, especially given how that team has finished their season and with the job that Steve Ott did in Springfield for him this year.
Another spot we've been looking at on the Blues roster, and I know we've had plenty of conversations about it, Mike, is at the center position. Another name's kind of emerged in the trade market after he lost the trust of his head coach in Joel Quenneville down the home stretch and in the playoffs. Would you have interest in Mason McTavish?
I would. I'm surprised to see his name come across. I saw that report yesterday and how there seems to be some real, I guess, feelers being put out on this player. And you know, he is a player that, to me, when I first saw him come into the league, he had just come in with Anaheim, and Vegas played him a lot when I was working that series. I just don't know if he's found his scoring touch that you're hoping for in the NHL. I think he sees the ice well. I'm not sure he's been as engaged as he needs to be, though, and just defensively on the puck. And that's a tough part for the Blues, is that you still need players that can be responsible. And Anaheim hasn't been great defensively. Is it because of Mason McTavish? Is it because of people around him? I'm not sure of that. I do really like the player, though. I think he has a high ceiling. You're probably at some point, this guy might knock on 65, 70 points. He should be a top 2 center in the NHL. He's under 25 years old, but he hasn't quite reached it, and there are defensive questions. So he would not be a player that I would put a huge premium on if you were dealing for him. I wouldn't take a crazy swing and give up a lot of assets, but if he became available and the package was right to do it, I would definitely entertain it on McTavish.
So is Parayko too crazy of a return if Anaheim asks for that?
I'd need something more than Parayko, or I'm sorry, than just McTavish.
Gotcha.
Truthfully, I would. I don't think that's a 1-for-1 deal for me. I don't think you're going to get help on the backside. I think what you're really going to look at there, does this turn into a 3-team deal? Is there any salary retention? Are we looking at another prospect coming along? You know, I mean, the Blues are pretty stocked on prospects. I would want a roster player, and I'm really not sure Anaheim has that roster player that I really want to be able to help the Blues beside McTavish.
One thing is for sure, though, it does sound like this is going to be a crazy offseason in terms of trades, Mike, because the free agency class is not that entertaining. So teams are going to have to go elsewhere to find defensemen, goaltending, and scoring wingers. And the ironic part is the Blues have all 3 of those.
Right. And they've got stuff to play with, you know. So, yeah. I mean, I actually think the Blues are kind of in an envious spot if some of the players involved are willing to move off of contracts. And that's the elephant in the room, with whether it's Kyrou, Parayko. Ultimately, it becomes a really weird scenario when what it comes down to is the player wants to stay somewhere, but the team doesn't want him anymore. That's really the bottom line, what it comes down to. You don't know until you're in your shoes how those are going to play out. But eventually, over time, you kind of feel like you're in purgatory. I've talked to players that have been like that, where they wanted to stay, but they knew they just weren't in the plans. Eventually, it allows you to guide your own future here and where you want to end up. So we'll see what they choose to do on it. But I tell you what, if they gave the Blues back Frank Vetrano alongside Mason McTavish, I'd go for it. That guy was my killer. So
I loved Frank Vetrano. I love Frank Vetrano. That guy feels like he always finds a way to kill. And to your point, Braden Shen said that when he was traded to the Islanders. He said, look, you tell him no so many times, at some point you just feel like you're not in the plan. So it's right what Mike is talking about in that front. All right, Mike, I've delayed it long enough because I've had 2 texts already come in that says, enough with the hockey talk, get to the buzzword. So you might have somebody already waiting in the parking lot for you. We always love talking about what's going on out at Macadoodle. Some really nice summer weather coming our way. So what can people expect when they head out to Macadoodles?
Well, we just got more Capel in. That's Keystone Light Apple. We still have Bush Apple up front. We got pickle wine in today. We also got Grillo's and Pabst Blue Ribbon pickle beer in. We've got some Willet Purple Tops out, the 4-year. We've got some Maker's Mark Stewards release that we still have some of. We got some Penelope Riviera in today, along with some creme brulee. So we got some big hitters out there. But you're right, guys. We had a new record last week. It was about 15 seconds that when I said the word, said come into Macadoodles, ring the bell, say the word, they were right there. So let's get the big thing out of the way. We are Macadoodles, Dardine Prairie. We are just north of the Page Extension. We are at Bryan and Feisey Road in Dardine Prairie. Today's bottle available is a bottle of E.H. Taylor small batch bourbon for $59.97. The first person to walk into Macadoodles and proudly ring the bell and say the word gherkin, because we got a lot of pickle stuff in the building, say the word gherkin, and then we are going to have somebody taking home a bottle of E.H. Taylor that they get to purchase today.
I thought
say gherkin, ring the bell here at Macadoodles.
I thought that voice in the background was somebody already yelling gherkin, and I'm like, damn, this is on delay.
That's why I had it on. I thought we were going to get Jen up front blasting in saying, Mike, they're already here.
Give it a couple seconds. They'll be there. Mike, always love our hockey talk, man. Thanks so much for hopping on today. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk next Friday.
Sounds good. Everybody enjoy the game tonight. Have a good, safe weekend. Come see us at Macadoodles. Thanks as always.
All right, Macadoodle Mike McKenna with us here on 101 ESPN. And by the way, he mentioned that game tonight. Game 5, Hurricanes leading the Canadians 3-1 in the series. It's back to Carolina. We've got all that coverage for you tonight starting at 6:30 with Puck Drop at 7 right here on 101 ESPN. So he kind of said it there, T-Bone. McTavish for Parayko, in his opinion, too much for the Blues side of things.
And I think that's right. You know, and we talked a little bit about him yesterday. I felt that was a little much, but I could see if you were the Blues how you convince yourself of that, right? You're probably going to have to overpay to go out and get a young centerman that's on a decent deal like McTavish is. And if you think about it, Parayko doesn't match up with the timeline. Now, what I found interesting is what he said of what the conversation would be between the goalies if he went with a young defensive core, because that's the thing that we've been talking about of if you trade Parayko and you did go young on opening night, it would probably look a lot like what it did for Mayu early on in the season. And now that was with one guy with one pairing. Now imagine potentially doing that with 2 pairings or 3 pairings with the young guys that you're putting out there. That feels almost too risky, and that's where it gets interesting in their conversations of if they're willing to move Parayko this offseason. If they do it, it's probably because he doesn't fit to the timeline, but then you almost have to I feel like you almost have to go out to free agency and get a guy that doesn't fit in the timeline just to kind of make this settle in a little bit easier.
Well, and that's the second person we've talked to. Curbs did this on Wednesday, that has said, like, hey, it's very noticeable how much veteran presence they lost on the defensive side, and they're going to want to recover that. And it's the second person that said, maybe you bring another veteran presence in. I just don't know where that guy's playing, because as much as I understand what Mike's saying with Lindstein and Juracek, and you got to get him development, and do you want to take development at the NHL level or keep it at the American Hockey League level? But if you go out there and sign or trade for another veteran because you need that status, that guy's playing because it's a veteran, which means somebody's not getting that playing time, which is fine if it's Juracek or Lindstein and they're developing in the minor league still, or the 7th defenseman. But that also means Tyler Tucker's probably out of this conversation. He's probably the 7th defenseman, which also means Matt Kessel is probably not back with this team. So I'm fascinated to see how they value that defensive side. And if they do need that veteran presence, do they find somebody who's cool with being a 7th defenseman in and out, or do they find somebody that needs to play because they want the development for some of those younger guys? So if you missed any of the conversation with Mike McKenna, you can check it out on our podcast page after the show today, 101ESPN.com. The podcast brought to you by Schaefer Door Company, and also the 101 ESPN app, which is brought to you by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. In 15 minutes is the time for the Cardinals to start calling up these young kids that are doing well in Memphis. We'll discuss that. But next, if a cap comes into play by next season, what does that mean for the Cardinals rebuild? That's next here on 101 ESPN. So we know the labor negotiations that are going to be taking place for the next 6 months, and it gets ugly. And the biggest sticking point is, will there be a salary cap or will there not be a salary cap? Along with Tanner Henderickson and Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario. So let's go down the path of a salary cap is instituted, and next season they agree upon it. We start with a salary cap, and they have to put this in around Major League Baseball. And let's just say it goes with what the owners are asking. $171 million is the salary cap floor. The ceiling was 250 or 200 and I don't know. Why am I blanking on this? Hold on. Back at the beginning. 245, 250, kind of close to it. The players wanted 300. They wanted a 150 soft floor. So to put that into perspective, the Cardinals this season have $94 million accounted for payroll. $40 million of that is retained salary that they have on Gray, Arenado, and Wilson Contreras. So they would have to, and I don't know, this stuff plays into next year too, if I'm not mistaken, right? The salary cap that's retained, or the salary that's retained for those players.
Yeah, I think there's
Arenado's got 9. Contreras has 4. So $13 million is going towards guys that aren't on the roster compared to the 40 this year. You're spending a ton of money to get to the floor. Like just now, if you were to go with what they are putting in place of wanting that 171 payroll as the floor, you're spending close to $90 million in money. And as we all know from what the Cardinals want to do, this is a build or a rebuild, as they want to call it. What does that mean for that timeline? Because you are not just going to be playing the young players. You're not just putting Josh Baez in the left field position and Jimmy Crooks behind the plate, because you have to find a way to make up $90 million in cap to make sure that you're at the floor for next season.
Yeah, I don't know. It would be fascinating to watch if it happens, because it's a little easier to kind of go through the rebuilding process now because you can cut so much money from your payroll and you can just set whatever you want, right? I mean, we had the conversation in the offseason. Would they really go to less than $100 million on their payroll this year? And they did, you know. Now, that doesn't mean you can't rebuild. I mean, the NHL's got a floor, and we see teams rebuild all the time, right? You see it in the NBA as well, and you see it not so much in the NFL. It's harder to rebuild in that league than any. But I don't know what it would mean for them, because you can make up some of this depending on what they set the league minimum at. Like if you end up going by the players' proposal and it's at $1.5 million, I think we figured out you add like $14 million to the payroll on guys that haven't hit the arbitration process yet. But I think it would become a conversation of, okay, would the Cardinals then have to go to free agency and spend money on guys just to get to that spot?
Well,
or
and to put that sorry to cut you up, but to put that into perspective, let's say the $1.5 million minimum salary is the 14. That basically just wipes away the money that's not retained from Arenado and Gray and Wilson Contreras for next year. So essentially, you're still spending the same amount, even if you bump all those guys up to the minimum salary.
So you've got that as a potential avenue. You've got that adds to it. So maybe you go to free agency, and then you have to try and figure out, okay, where do we need to pay for a guy and potentially overpay for a guy to make sure that he, A, comes here, and B, helps us get to that spot? But then also, you know, can you be the beneficiary of taking on maybe a quote-unquote bad contract, or somebody has to dump one from the 8 or 9 teams that are above that cap situation? It would be an interesting dynamic towards what rebuilding teams end up having to decide to do. And the other one that would be interesting is even if we went by what the Players Association's proposal was, which was the soft floor, how much incentive would the Cardinals have to get to it? You don't have to. No. It just means you're not taking on your full share of potential revenue sharing if you qualify for that. But I don't know exactly what you could do. I know Josh Jacobs had a great piece on Redbird Rants talking about like how this could help them, how it also hurts them. And the part that it hurts them is now teams like the Pirates, Reds, and Brewers also are spending up towards that money. And imagine the Brewers smarts with, you know, $150 million payroll. It's interesting to see what would happen, but I would find it fascinating to see where the Cardinals would go towards this, because you don't want to block any of your key players. But somewhere you have to add to this roster to where you need to get to that floor. So it would be an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, like, because somebody's bringing up, like, well, one, it's going to make you pay your younger players faster. That's true. Like, Walker gets a contract. Maybe Burleson, Herrera, you don't play the arbitration process out as much. Those guys are getting paid. But you're still having to add, because that's not even going to really get you close to the extra $90 million that you have to make up. You're going to free agency and you're signing guys, or you're making trades to bring in inflated contracts, which could be a good thing because you're making yourself competitive, but it also is blocking the whole goal of what the Cardinals are trying to accomplish right now, which is slow development, process, get these guys some reps so that they're ready to play. I do think there's pros and cons to it. The pros are you keep these guys in the minors so that when they get called up, it's like what Mike said for defensemen in the NHL. You get called up, you're ready. You don't get called up and you're learning on the fly. You get called up and you've had the reps, you've got the experience, and now you go to the major leagues and you're expected to perform right away. The cons of that are you're signing guys that are going to block certain areas. Like you asked the question, what would this past offseason look like if the cap was instigated this offseason, this past one? I think they're spending a ton of more money on their pitching, which means they're not experimenting with Kyle Leahy and the rotation. You're probably putting Palante right back into the bullpen. And I even wonder if they're keeping Matthew Liberatore as a bullpen arm. Because if you're spending the $90 million, maybe you're spending a chunk of it for one of the outfield positions because you knew Lars Nootbaar was going to be out. Maybe you spend a little bit more money on a guy to play an infield spot like Ramon Urias was. But, man, if the Cardinals were in that position, and I think the same could be said for next offseason, this isn't let's give these guys some runway to see what they look like in the rotation. I think they're probably signing not big names, but they're signing big contracts for pitchers that are just placeholders until your minor league guys are ready to go.
Yeah, they were at like $130 million, I think is what it was last year on the payroll. And you have to get up to 171. So you're talking about $40 million. You could still make maybe a trade or two, but you probably end up not making all of them that we saw, right? Like they probably hang on to Sonny Gray while also adding Dustin May.
Yeah.
Now,
or maybe don't eat as much. Hell, maybe they don't have to eat anything on a trade for Nolan Arenado if somebody wants that.
Potentially, because it's possible the Diamondbacks needed to get to the floor, right? Like it would be interesting, but I think what you would see, and like even though we're having these conversations of like what would it mean for the Cardinals, I think a lot of it could be, I saw on the YouTube chat, their name disappeared on me. I don't know who it was that said it, but it's probably a lot of one-year deals for bullpen arms, right? I mean, that would be one way that you can kind of get up there a little quickly.
And inflated contracts.
And that's the other thing. I don't like. Would you have to overpay on a bullpen arm? Yep. Like, I don't know if you necessarily have to, if you can do it elsewhere, right? And the other thing, I don't think you're paying your best players right away. Because what is the thing that we always talk about, cap or no cap? It's that surplus value. So you're not suddenly going to go, well, we have to race to the floor, so we might as well pay Jordan Walker. No, your hope would be, all right, well, if the arbitration process is here, let's slowly play Walker through the arbitration process. So a guy that's making, $4 million in year one isn't making $35 million now because we had to pay him, right?
Well, then you're spending it on other spots, though, because you have to get to that floor. And if this is a guy that's playing every day for you, does it make more sense to keep him at a cheap contract and go pay another guy who doesn't pay or play versus paying the guy that's out there every day and then spending less money elsewhere?
Yeah, but you could find a spot to kind of overpay without blocking somebody, right? Like they could do that at center field, for example.
Yeah.
They could do that potentially at third base.
And block Victor Scott.
I know.
How dare you?
They could do it at third base if they wanted to as well. Now, I don't know who that name would be.
Right.
The other thing, though, that is interesting, and again, this is why these are the first proposals. They're not done deals. I don't know that you can actually just expect these teams to get to this spot in an offseason like that. Like, I almost think you almost have to grandpa this system in if you're going to go to a salary cap if you're the owners. But they don't seem to be talking that way.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the Cardinals that have to get to the floor. There were 12 other teams that have to get to that floor. While you've also got, there are 9 teams that have to get down from it. I just don't know how you can ask them to get up to that spot, especially for teams like with the Cardinals where it's $70 million. And then the Marlins, it's like $90 million where you've got to get to that spot. That just seems unreasonable to ask for these organizations within a offseason. I think if you go to a cap, you almost have to go through a 3-year grace period of, okay, we agreed to a 5 or 7 year labor deal. The cap is going to be implemented, but it's not going to be a hard cap until we get 3 years into the road of this. That way teams can slowly start making that process up towards the floor, and those teams can slowly start to make that process down to the ceiling.
Well, we're talking so much about those teams that need to move up, but how many of those players are available via trades to where they get you to that floor faster from the teams that have to get below it? I mean, we're talking, $578 million that those 8 teams combined would have to get to go below the ceiling. That's a lot of players that have a lot of money tied to them, which not all of them are going to want to be traded because a lot of those guys are players that you're building around, but that means there's more players elsewhere that have to get moved. So maybe that's part of it. And this is why I think the conversation is brought up and why when the player side of this is talking about how, well, it doesn't benefit, it makes player fighting, that's the problem. The players union is speaking for the guys that are getting paid the top dollars, but who gets benefited from the salary floor are these guys that barely get any money or don't get jobs in Major League Baseball, and they get sent to the Korean League, the Japanese League, or just play in the minors because nobody wants to give them the money because they don't have to worry about it. They're being a bad team. To where now, when there's this floor, those guys are getting contracts, and maybe they're getting overpaid. You're better suiting that middle class of players rather than making them phased out of baseball.
To that point on the middle class of players, it's now, again, these numbers come from from MLB owners. Now, it could be kind of skewing what they're selling here, but it makes sense just based on what the eye test has been. MLB has said that the middle class is getting squeezed, with data showing that 10% of its highest paid players receive 60% of the total payroll compared to 51% in the NFL, 41% in the NBA, and 31% in the NHL. That right there is the number that you're looking at that we're having that conversation about, where they're just getting kind of stuck and they're kind of stagnant with their pay compared to that upper class of players where you've got, it's not just Ohtani. Ohtani's a unicorn, so it makes sense that he would break the bank. Was Kyle Tucker a guy that deserved that big a contract from the LA Dodgers?
No.
I don't think so. But the Dodgers inflated the market to where he can kind of sell the notion that I should be getting this. Meanwhile, the middle class has continued to stay stuck at where they're at there in Major League Baseball Players Association.
From the 618, wasn't it the owners that proposed these numbers, so they probably aren't worried about getting to that number, correct? You're correct. The owners don't care about getting to that number because it's a number. The general managers are the ones that are concerned about it because they've got to find guys to pay them the money and make sure you're giving them the right contracts and making sure it makes sense for the health of the team. General manager's job is to, yes, adhere to what the owners are putting out there, but their job is to build a winner. And you're forcing more teams to build a winner, but you're also forcing teams to go out there and spend. And you got to spend to make sure the younger guys are still getting the playing time, but also you're getting teams that are out there competitively and not just paying guys that aren't doing much for your team. So that's kind of where things lie if that were to be the case. But as we all know, it ain't going to happen as fast as we would like to see it happen. Tanner Henderickson, Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15 minutes, we'll dive into the junk drawer. But coming up next, is it time to start calling up these kids for the Cardinals? This series may make it a perfect opportunity to call up a few of them. But how much do we believe they will? We'll discuss next here on 101 ESPN.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Harkey with your Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Game 5 of the Hurricanes versus Canadians is tonight. You can listen to that game here on 101 ESPN. Puck drop starts at 6:30. Our pregame starts at 6:30, and the game starts at 7. This Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
So, T-Bone, I think we've been pretty consistent with the conversation over the last few weeks, maybe month it feels like, when it comes to the younger guys in the minors. Josh Baez, Jimmy Crooks, Blaze Jordan. Yes, it makes sense to call them up, but where are they playing? And how are you getting them on the 40-man roster? And that only really applies to Blaze Jordan, but it's still a part of the conversation, and you just don't have an answer for it, which is why we sit here and still say, are these guys going to get called up? And along with Tanner Henderickson and Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario. Will they continue, these players, to push the issue? Because Josh Baez hit another home run yesterday. That is now 5 home runs in his past 3 games for the Memphis Redbirds. Nice. He's hit 2 of them in 2 separate games. So Joshua Baez's numbers have been through the roof in the month of May. 293 batting average with a 363 on-base percentage, 685 slug, a over 1,000 OPS with 10 home runs, which leads all of minor league baseball in this month. And even the splits have been a little bit better than where he was at the beginning of the season. So Chaim Bloom was on KSDK. A video of this was on social media yesterday, and this was Chaim's answer on Joshua Baez.
I mean, again, special kid, just special person. Not an accident that he overcame some of those early career struggles to get to be on the radar to this point at AAA. The power is going to play. It's really about getting his swing, his approach to a point where he can have success against both sides, to where he can get to that power routinely at the big league level. And that's a process. I mean, you see the power at AAA. You also see there's still some things he needs to work on in terms of swing and miss, in terms of that offensive game. But, you know, he's on his way.
The swing and miss has improved against left-handed pitching. The Cardinals this season, 235 batting average, which is 20th in Major League Baseball, 357 slug, which is 22nd, and 674 OPS, which is 19th. And left-handed pitching is what Josh Baez crushes. Now, he's getting better on the right-handed side of things, at least in the last couple of months, or last month, that is. But Josh Baez is pushing the issue. And when you look at who the Cardinals are going up against this weekend series, the Cubs have 2 left-handed pitchers, and they have a spot open to them in the corner outfield, whether it's Brian Torres shifting to center field or you're just playing him there and keeping Victor Scott in center field. So the time may be right to finally give Josh Baez the call up to get a taste of Major League Baseball prior to Lars Nootbaar becoming available.
Yeah, I mean, he's pushing the issue. I still don't think they're going to call him up, though.
I don't either.
And I don't know how I feel about it because I don't want to rush him. But as you've seen, like you made reference to, his numbers against righties are getting better. I don't know as much on his swing and miss. That might still be high.
I think the last time I saw it was at like a 68% clip or something like that.
It's certainly something he's been working on, but his numbers against right-handed pitching are starting to come up, which makes me wonder if it's getting better. Because when you look at his right-handed numbers on the season, he's now got a split where it's an 831 OPS against righties. He's not hitting for as good an average, 220, but he's got a 512 slug against righties. He's not getting on base as much against them. But just a couple weeks ago, that OPS was well below 800. So he's gone on this tear that's really helped uplift it. I just don't think they're going to do it because, one, it doesn't make sense to put him in a corner right now because Nootbaar's going to be coming back here soon. So you don't want to call him up for whatever it is, 6 games, 9 games, whatever it is that Nootbaar comes back, and then immediately send him right back down. And I don't think they're comfortable with him in center field. I know he's playing it, but as Kyle said yesterday, he's probably not ready as a major league center fielder. He might be ready defensively in a corner, but we know how much this team values center field. I think it makes sense from a bat perspective because, man, it's 5 through 9. It can't get much worse.
I mean, him hitting 5th for you would be ideal right now.
Especially
then you
against
can push
the lefty.
you just push everybody down and you're not worrying about that black hole.
Yeah, I get it. They've got to figure out this bottom part of the order. And the other thing, like, And BT said this when we talked with him earlier today of, this season's kind of about finding out what you have with guys. And that is true, but do you need a full season, or how long do you need to figure that out? Because at this point, Victor Scott has played in 243 career games. He's taken on 774 plate appearances. In my opinion, we've learned that there's just not much with him offensively. I know the Cardinals feel differently. I don't see it with him. I understand the process as well, what he's doing behind the scenes. There's not a lot to point to that tells me that this guy's going to be a everyday big leaguer when it comes to at least his bat. And I don't know that his defense is good enough to make up for a guy that, when you look at it right now, is at a 52 OPS plus. In his career, he's 38% below league average. His bat's not good enough his defense isn't good enough, in my opinion, to even make up for that much of a hole he is in the lineup.
Yeah, and I don't think you're in a position where you're desperate for that offense. I know you haven't been scoring runs yet, but you look at it and you'd expect some of these guys to at least start to improve. Look, somebody brings up a good point on the Air Comfort Service text line. Nolan Gorman did this in the minor leagues. Tyler O'Neill did this in the minor leagues. Like, you can crush baseballs in the minor leagues, and it doesn't always mean it's going to translate to the major league level. As much as I want to see Josh Baez, I want to see Josh Baez get up here and stay up here. I don't want to see Josh Baez for 3 games, it look bad, and then him get sent back down and everybody be like, oh, geez, it's like, so another guy that's not really there. Keep the hype going. Let him continue to perform. If there's areas, and somebody also said, every player's not perfect, they have stuff to always fine-tune. Exactly. Let them fine-tune it as long as you possibly can. You're just not in a position that you need Josh Baez right now. You're going to get Lars Nootbaar back. He's going to struggle. Brian Torres has been really good for you. You're not playing Baez in center field. You're going to play either Torres or Victor Scott in center field. And I think once Lars Nootbaar comes back, there becomes a logjam. And I know people don't like to hear that. The logjam needs to figure itself out now rather than next season and still have that logjam.
You see, I don't. If they were called Baez today, I wouldn't mind it. But they're not going to do it because they just won't play him in center. But if you call him up here, it's not a 9-game sample size. It is they have decided he's probably the center fielder when Nootbaar comes back. They're not going to do that.
And that's where they're just not doing that.
I would be in favor of that if they wanted to try it. Just because I get it, maybe he's not ready defensively, but man, you could really use maybe a spark in this lineup. I would be okay if they decided to call up Blaze Jordan.
Well, that's what everybody on the text line is saying. He's the guy that should be up here. That's fine. Who are you cutting off your 40-man roster?
Prieto or Roycroft.
Do you think the Cardinals would do either of those?
Probably not.
And that's the part that it's frustrating.
Should they?
Yes, they absolutely should. Like, Prieto is not a part of this future. Put Blaze Jordan there. But one, I don't think they view it that way because they like having that option. Look at who they called up when an injury happened. It was Cesar Prieto. It was not Blaze Jordan. And that was to an infielder when Ramon Urias went down, the spot that you could have played Blaze Jordan. And the other part of this is I don't think they want to take Nolan Gorman out of the lineup. And
I
they
don't think
obviously
you have
don't
to for Jordan. Like, if you call up Jordan, he's not playing every day. Like, I think this is accepting what Jordan is as a player.
I think they view this, though, as if he's up here, he's playing.
I don't know. I think they viewed it against lefties. That would be the case. They're not playing him every day over Gorman. They're just not going to do that.
No, I know that, but I think they would say, like, if he's up here, he's playing 3 out of 5 games.
And
I just don't think they do that.
I think if they were to call up Jordan, it would be in a specific role. And it would be, we think he can handle third base, and we want him to play there against lefties. And maybe like if a day where Burley needs a day off, you can schedule it around a left-hander and you can play him at first base for a game. He's not a guy, in my opinion, at least I hope they're not viewing it this way, because if they are, they're falling into their same patterns that they did under Mo, where it was, we don't want to call up Luken Baker because Luken Baker needs to be playing every day. Okay, well, Luken Baker's never going to have a role on this team to play every day, so you need to find out if he can be a bench bat for you or not. And if he can, great. If he can't, guess what? He's not going to be a part of the big leagues for your roster. I think Blaze Jordan falls into the same thing. I don't look at Blaze Jordan and say this is an everyday player.
I don't either. I look at Blaze Jordan as a complimentary piece. But, I mean, Blaze Jordan was performing as well as Cesar Prieto in AAA at the time that Prieto got called up. And when Prieto got called up, it was when Ramon Urias went down.
Yeah, but he's not an everyday player. He's in a bench role specifically.
And I think that's why
we haven't seen him in the last couple of days.
But I think that's what they look at Blaze Jordan as. It's like he's not a bench player. He's a guy that should be in there more times than not. And that's why I don't think you're going to see him. It's the same thing with Jimmy Crooks. I think they'd say, like, look, he's not playing, so we need to keep him.
That one I can understand because he is a top end. He is viewed as a top catching prospect. And that one I get because that's a guy that you don't want to call up. I've never heard anyone say that the future for Blaze Jordan is an everyday guy. Now, maybe I'm wrong on that, and if I talk to people around the Cardinals this weekend, they'll tell me differently, and then I can change my tone on it. But I don't think he's ever been viewed as when this guy's up here, he is playing every single day. He is a future third baseman or a future first baseman. Everything that seemed to suggest was, okay, this guy was the replacement to Luken Baker, doesn't really have a position that you can really identify as he's going to be great here defensively, and you hope that his bat just plays to where he can maybe come off the bench and be in, whether it be the Pozo or be the right-handed bat that can start in place of Nolan Gorman against lefties.
Yeah, well, and in either sense, it's one of two things, which I think both are falling into the Cardinals' traps of years past. It's what we're talking about, to where, they want him to play every day, and if he's not up here, or if he's not getting that chance, then he's not going to be up here. Or it's concern of the 40-man roster, and they don't want to make a 40-man roster move because they don't want to lose Roycroft or Pareto. Either way, you're still falling into the trap. And the same sentiment you said about Josh Baez of, hey, they could use a spark. Blaze Jordan could be that spark. That one makes the most logical sense of the three, but once again, it falls into I just don't see the Cardinals making those moves. I think they keep it as is until Lars Nootbaar is ready for them, which is probably going to be that next series against the Rangers or the Reds, more likely the Reds. And then they'll say, well, that's the spark. And then when Ramon Urias comes back, well, that's the next spark. And then they'll get to the point where it's Blaze Jordan, Josh Baez, and that's probably not till the trade deadline. Tanner Henderickson, Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll see if there's any roster moves later on this afternoon prior to the Cardinals opening up the series against the Chicago Cubs tonight. Andre Palante on the mound. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get back into the Cardinals on the rotation side of things. How comfortable are you believing that what they've been doing in the month of May is going to repeat? But coming up next, we'll dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer is presented by Bet365. With Bet365 early payout, you win even if they lose. Get paid out instantly when your team goes up big, even if they blow the lead later. Bet365. Winning is everything.
Alongside Tanner Henderickson and Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario. Let's dive into the junk drawer here. And, guys, Mike Ryder brought me onto something earlier today before the show. And I said, God, this is going to be perfect for the junk drawer. T-Bone, how did you get your nickname?
I got it from the one and only Jamie Rivers.
Yeah?
While doing, I think at the time, Rivs and BK.
Yeah.
And he said, what's your nickname? And I said, Tan Man. He goes, we need a new nickname.
Tan Man.
And
who gave you Tan Man?
Oh, that was my mom, so I agree. We needed a new nickname. But then, and then I don't even know how he came up with T-Bone, but he just immediately said, I'm thinking T-Bone. And I don't know if that's because he watches Seinfeld or not, but
or it's just a T-bone steak.
There.
Jamie loves himself some steak. The good thing about having a long last name like Ferrario is you don't have nicknames. It's just people call you your last name, and it works. So that's just, I've just always been Ferrario. That's what people will go with. And that leads us to Eric. Because Eric, I walked past Mike today, and Mike goes, you know what Eric's nickname is? And I go, what? A nickname? He's like, I haven't given him a nickname, and I think he's just worked with us. And I go, yay, what is it? So, Eric, what's the nickname you go with?
It's E-Money.
It's E-Money.
How'd you get that?
Yeah, how'd you get E-Money?
Self-appointed in, middle school.
See, I don't think you can
See, here's the thing, Eric. Look, you can't give yourself the nickname.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. Why did you go with E-Money? Did you make it rain a lot back in middle school?
I just played a lot of Call of Duty, mostly. Played a lot of Call of Duty, and I was really, really bad. So I would just mess with my friends and talk a bunch of crap. So it's just landed on E-Money somehow.
And you just kept losing.
It was actually based off of the Kevin Durant Twitter handle of E-Money Too Easy Sniper.
And your friends were like, absolutely, yes.
Well, no one calls me that. That's just
you just call yourself it?
I call it for comedic effect at times, yes.
Okay, all right. So have your friends given you a nickname, or is it just...
No, I mean, my friends will make fun of me because my dad is also Eric Harkey. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm not a junior, there's different middle names there, but everyone just either calls me Little E, in my family, or they call me EJ. But those are the only nicknames. I mean,
I like
my friend.
EJ. I like EJ more. So I'm not BK, so I'm not going to put a poll out here. But I am curious from the listeners, do we stick with E-Money? Because I feel like we got to have a nickname for Eric on the show. He's going to be a part of this show.
Everybody's got nicknames in the building. Staltz, Rivs.
Staltz, Rivs.
CD.
CD. Carrie's got one. I don't think anybody from the morning show has. Jackie Papers is Jackson. I don't think anybody on TMA else has nicknames. Again, I just have my last name.
Yeah, I don't guess nobody.
So I really don't have one. Ryder's the same, where he just goes by Ryder, or I call him Boss every once in a while. Yeah. So I think we just... Sir? That Sir's a good one. I think we go with E-Money. I don't know about you, T-Bone. A self-appointed nickname might work.
No, I just don't think you can self-appoint it, you know, and then have us vote for it. I think it's got to be something else.
Yeah, self-appointed.
I don't know that I like Little E.
No, Little E's a little weird for us. I don't know if I want to go with that one here.
EJ is also weird because only my mom calls me that.
Okay.
You see, you can't go.
My mom calls me T-Man. We got to get rid of it.
Somebody said his nickname should be T-Bone's son.
I know. I don't understand why everybody keeps
Little
saying...
T-Bone.
Eric, how old are you?
20, about to be 21.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
yeah, but I'm 26, so I couldn't
have had it when you were 5. Well, right now it's going to be E-Money until we come up with a different one, because I like the fact that he gave himself a nickname, and it's what's going to stick here. But Ryder said it, and I'm like, yeah, we're going to have to bring this up at some point, because when you give self-appointed nicknames, you're... unfortunately, put yourself up for a couple of shots.
All these text lines, all these nicknames you're handing out suck. Come on.
Easy E. I guarantee he has no idea. T-Bone, I don't even know if you know Easy E.
I thought that was just
from
something
NWA?
that they were saying. Oh, no,
I see. I love Easy E. I love a lot of 90s and 80s rap.
Oh my gosh, Eric might connect with this show more than you, T-Bone. You should start worrying about the Wally Pip situation here. He's going to connect more with BK and I.
Yeah, good for you guys.
Have you ever seen?
Go find more people.
Eric, have you ever seen Big Daddy?
Oh, of course.
What do you think of Big Daddy?
I love that movie.
Oh, man. T-Bone, this is not going well for you. I actually think Easy E might be a great nickname on this one. We'll figure it out as the show goes on. With Tanner Henderickson and Easy E, Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, can the Cardinals rotation repeat what it has been doing in the month of May? And what would that mean for this Cardinals team? That's next here on 101 ESPN. Henderickson, and what did we say? We were going with Easy E, but there was one that we really liked there at the end of that commercial break. I forget what it was. Must not have been too good. So nickname still to be determined for Eric Harkey. I'm Alex Ferrario as we're back here on BK and Ferrario. Cardinals back in action this weekend against the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs coming off of 2 wins against the Pittsburgh Pirates, so they stopped their losing streak before they enter this series at Busch Stadium. And the biggest thing I think a lot of people are going to be focused in on in this series, T-Bone, is going to be what the Cardinals pitching does against the Cubs. Now, although the Cubs offense has struggled mightily in the month of May, overall this season, they've got a pretty decent offense. They've got the slug potential. They've got some really good options, like Ian Happ always seems to find his way against the Cardinals team. Pete Crow Armstrong has gone through his struggles, but you know he's got the potential to go off. And you're going to see what your Cardinals pitching staff has the potential to do. You got Palante tonight, Leahy tomorrow, and then on Sunday will be Matthew Liberatore. The Cardinals rotation in the month of May has been really good. You've gotten 11 quality starts from them, which is 5th best in Major League Baseball in the month of May. A 3.7 ERA, which is 12th, a FIP of 3.62, which is 9th, and an 8.53 strikeouts per 9, which is 13th. So everything is in the top half of the league, and 2 of them are top 10 in the league. And a lot of this has been for how good McGreevy has looked, for how Dustin May has looked. The question always comes back to how sustainable is this? We've talked already about McGreevy's regression. Matthew Liberatore, although the strikeouts have been there, the runs have been going up on him. How much do you buy into what they did in the month of May being sustainable? And can that, or does that mean the Cardinals are in a much better position than where they're at right now?
I think they can kind of sustain this, where they're about middle of the pack in some of these metrics, especially like ERA 3.71. If they were around a 4 ERA in like the month of June, I could see that from this pitching staff because, yeah, Palante pitches to contact and McGreevy pitches to contact, but Leahy's shown at times that he's got decent swing and miss. Matthew Liberatore, I'm intrigued by it. I'm not completely bought in like BT or BKR when it comes to what he's shown in the last 2 starts, but if you believe in the way he's spinning the baseball here of late, then I think you got to believe that he's going to start to add a little bit more swing and miss. And as he starts to do that, it's going to help kind of alleviate some of those big blow-up innings that he's had here of late, like the Pittsburgh Pirates one and then the last start against the Milwaukee Brewers. And Dustin May looks like he's found his rhythm. I mean, we talked about him yesterday after he had the 7 no-hit innings, and he's been awesome outside the first 2 starts of the year. So, yeah, I'm kind of buying in on what we're seeing a little bit from this rotation. I think it's going to be middle of the pack. I don't think it's going to end up being bottom 5 like we saw through kind of the first month of the season. I think these guys have kind of figured it out, and then if you can add in a little bit of support from your back-end arms in the bullpen, I think what does it mean for the Cardinals? It means that they can buy some time when the offense goes through these ruts. I mean, BT said it perfectly. The offense hasn't been that good in May, but the pitching staff's been giving you a chance. Now, if you have to rely on them for the next 4 months of the baseball season, you're probably in trouble. But for those week or 2 stretches that a lot of teams go through throughout a baseball season where the offense just runs into a gauntlet of pitching like they did in Milwaukee, your staff has shown an ability to keep you in a lot of baseball games. So I'm kind of buying what we're seeing from this rotation so far this year.
Yeah, I'm buying the swing and miss stuff that you're starting to see that grow a little bit. What I'm not buying into is like the amount of runs that are getting scored on them. I mean, like Palante has kept that number extremely low when he's gone up against Cincinnati and the Royals in Pittsburgh. Gave up 1 run in each of those 3 starts by giving them 6 innings. But Milwaukee and the Athletics, he gave up a total of 8, getting through 11 innings. Leahy just gave up 5 against the Cincinnati Reds, but prior to that, 1-0 and 1 and 3 against Pittsburgh. That's the part that I wonder what it's going to look like. I just don't think you're going to see an ERA that stays that low. I think you might see it get closer to 4.4, 4.5. And if that's the case, what can your offense do to combat that? Because that's been the biggest bugaboo about this team in the month of May, T-Bone. It's beyond 1 through 4. You don't have the complementary pieces that are assisting an offense, whether that's Lars Nootbaar coming back, or maybe they make a call up that we didn't see happening. Can the offense cover if your pitching staff gives up more runs? Because that's what this thing's really going to determine. Not that everything falls apart for the Cardinals, but do they get fewer on the quality starts, higher on the ERA, And now you're talking about needing to score 5 or 6 runs to start winning baseball games rather than 4 or 3 runs to score baseball games.
I don't know if it's going to be that bad for him for a long stretch, but I mean, I said this on the Redbird Report. I think the thing that you can't convince me of is that at any point is the pitching going to be the thing that helps drive you to win baseball games this year. It's always going to be around the offense. You need the pitching to do just enough. That would be the way I would define what you need from the pitching staff this year in every game. Tonight, what do the Cardinals need from their pitching staff? Just enough to allow the offense to find a way, because the offense is the identity of the team. When the top 4, and that's probably not fair, when one guy in the top 4 has really gone through a struggle in the month of May, and that is J.J. Weatherholt going through his first struggles as a rookie, you've really felt it in the lineup, haven't you? Because nobody's been able to pick him up at the bottom 5 through 9. They just don't have guys that have the answer to that. So it is all going to rely around the offense. Can they do enough? The thing with the pitching is, can they just be about average to like 15 to 20 in that range? And, there are definitely signs that this may not be sustainable here in the month of May. Like, I was just looking at their numbers, and when it comes to walk rate, they have the 10th worst walk rate so far this month in the month of May with their rotation. And then you look at what opponents are doing batting average-wise against them. Opponents are hitting .248 against them, which is 23rd in Major League Baseball. So they may not be able to continue to do this because they are constantly having traffic on. But if they can get a little more swing and miss out of Libby, you're seeing more swing and miss out of May. And then if they can get one more guy, whether it's Palante, Leahy, or McGreevy, to generate more swing and miss in this rotation, I think they can kind of stabilize in that average range as a rotation.
The good news for the Cardinals is when you look at the month of June, a lot of the teams they're going to be playing don't have great offensive numbers. You've got the Rangers, who in terms of OPS, bottom 10 in Major League Baseball. The Reds are decent. Mets bottom 10, Twins bottom 10, Padres bottom 10, Royals bottom 10.
Oh, man, that sounds like a lot of bad baseball early watching.
I mean, it honestly is. Marlins are middle of the pack, so you've got them to deal with here. So, like, with the exception of the Reds and the Diamondbacks, and then once you get the Braves, that starts the month of July, that's really all you're talking about when you're going up against tough offenses. Like, the offense that you're really going to have to start to worry about is actually in the month of July. Braves, Cubs, Brewers, Braves, Diamondbacks, Angels, Reds, Cubs. Like, July is where I'd be worried that things start to really fall off for the Cardinals. June, you may be able to sustain that for another month, but I think July is a little bit of a worse scenario for the Cardinals unless you pad your standings a little bit in the month of June, because you're playing such rough teams to try and eliminate what July could look like.
And I think that this will be a great test on the rotation this weekend with the Cubs. Like, July, we'll figure it out when we get there. But to your point, if you can do well in June, you kind of build some cushion, hopefully, at that point.
Absolutely.
Now, we'll see if that actually happens. The National League is apparently loaded this year.
Yeah. And you really needed cushion in this last 11-game stretch where you were going with Pirates and Reds.
Yeah, this didn't really help you out much. And that's why that Pirates series loss just kind of kills them right now, especially in this little 12-game or 11-game stretch, I guess it is. But this weekend will be a good test for them, because you look at that Cubs lineup. Yeah, you mentioned it. They've had their weird struggles here in the month of May. But even though as a whole that they have struggled so far this year, this month, in May, you look at their regulars that are in their lineup, 7 of the 9 are above league average. Yeah. And you mentioned that Pete Crow Armstrong's been struggling. Well, even in his struggles, he's only 1% below league average. The only guy that's really been a black hole for them is Swanson. Which
makes sense.
I look at that lineup and I go, man, this is going to be a great test for this Cardinals rotation. And they've got Conforto, who they've been able to figure out on the bench. He's been very good against right-handed pitching this year. This one will be a really good test. We saw them go up against Milwaukee, who you mentioned as an offense has been decent. They were able to kind of shut them down for the most part. This weekend's a good test against your rival, the Chicago Cubs, in a lineup that runs very deep 1 through 9. I'll be curious to see how, especially with where you're at in your rotation, how Palante and Leahy hold up, and then we'll see what it looks like for Matthew Liberatore. Another good test to see, okay, is this swing and miss stuff real for him? And he'll be starting on the Game of the World stage, Sunday Night Baseball.
Yeah, honestly, Leahy and Liberatore are the two guys that I'm most excited to see, because Leahy's numbers have been much better lately. The swing and miss is starting to show up a little bit more. And then, of course, with Matthew Liberatore, I know you guys were very excited of his performance with the swing and miss, even though giving up those runs. But you're right. They did a great job of limiting Milwaukee's offense. Can you do that against the Chicago Cubs? Because, my God, that is a deep lineup that all has the potential to do some damage against you in this upcoming series. With Tanner Henderickson and Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, speaking of the Cardinals and Cubs, Which team has the brighter future when you look at where both are sitting as of today? We'll discuss that, believe it or not, coming up in 15 minutes here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Sorry, I Ron Burgundy that last tease. We're not doing Believe It or Not today, even though I'm sure people would love to see and hear Eric's beautiful singing voice once again. Honestly, some retribution because T-Bone screwed up the lyrics yesterday.
Well, we didn't have to call
we're moving
anybody out
past
on
it,
anything.
but we're not doing Believe It or Not because I Ron Burgundy. I read what was on the script, and it's not it. It's Friday, which means it's one got to go, or you send us 3 scenarios, and we'll tell you which one has to go. We'll get to that in 15 minutes. But because the Cardinals and Cubs are playing against each other, and we talked a little bit about, the salary cap, if that were to be a thing next year, and where the rebuild stands, Lee, these two teams are neck and neck with each other in the standings behind the Milwaukee Brewers. And T-Bone asked me the question in the NL Central, who's got the brighter future in 5 years? And I said, it's always going to be Milwaukee until they prove me differently with how they run things. But if you isolate it to the Cardinals and Cubs, who's got the brighter future between what both teams have as we see it today? Who's got the brighter future if you look at it?
I think it might be the Cardinals. And the reason I say that is you've got Jordan Walker, who is put himself into the MVP conversation right now in the middle of your lineup. You've got a potential Rookie of the Year candidate in J.J. Weatherholt. Then you add in Herrera Burley. You've got some pieces that are still coming on the offensive side, like a Reinel Rodriguez, Joshua Baez, who we talked about potentially being a guy that could maybe get a call up sooner rather than later. And then I look at what they've got in the pitching side of things, and yeah, it's light right now, but they've got a bunch of reinforcements coming. Tanner Franklin's one that's been moved into the list, like Keith Law did yesterday in his
Keith
top
Law
50.
broke that man.
Yeah, well.
Thanks a lot, Keith.
You've got Liam Doyle, you've got Sanja, you've got Quinn Matthews, Bryson Mott's down in the minor leagues that is coming, and then you look at the Chicago Cubs, and they're dealing with a ton of injuries right now. Even if they weren't dealing with injuries, their pitching's okay, I would say. I know they're down Steele. We'll see how he comes back from injury. Horton went down with injury. Cabrera's now down. And their farm system just doesn't have a ton of talent. We were looking at this preseason farm system rankings, had them 23rd, so they can make that up because they can spend, but I think the team that's maybe positioned themselves for a better future here in the next 5 years is potentially the St. Louis Cardinals.
The spending is the part that gets me, because I would say it's the Cubs in the sense that they can always throw money at their problems, to where I don't know if the Cardinals can do that. Now, if you take them at their word, when we interviewed Bill DeWitt III on opening day, and when we've had conversations with Chaim Bloom in the past, there is an appetite to spend when they are back into that competitive window. That's a ways away in their eyes, but when they get there, they're fine with being what they've been in the past, a team that's willing to spend money. And that's why I would give the Cardinals the edge, because if the Cardinals are able to spend, not to the same degree that the Cubs can, but if they're willing to spend, they've already got a head start on the Cubs in terms of what they have in their system. Because you looked at that, 23rd in Major League Baseball in terms of their prospect pipeline, whereas the Cardinals are, top 5, top 10? They've got a lot of guys that are on the pitching side of things that can provide the upside that what you're seeing the prospect pool already do at the level for the Cubs, with Steele and with Horton and with Edward Cabrera, who they acquired from the Miami Marlins. So the Cardinals will have the young assets that are developing, and they're also going to have the equity that they can move and the assets that they can move to acquire that helps right away. So yes, the Cubs can always spend, and yes, they can go out there and make aggressive moves to better themselves. But I feel like a team that's in a better position is one that has a jump start on the prospect pool. And that's where the Cardinals really accelerated their narrative this offseason when they made those moves with Boston and with Seattle to bring in more assets. And it's why when you approach this trade deadline, I wouldn't be afraid to try and add more assets as you continue to develop this to keep yourself in that prime position.
Yeah, and the thing with the Cubs, and I know they added Bregman this offseason, they got Cabrera, and they're 8th in payroll right now. But I feel like they're kind of at their max right now as to where they're going to be willing to go. Because remember, it was kind of a tug and pull of whether or not they were going to end up being willing to add Alex Bregman. I know.
Wow, Timo.
But there's always been talk of okay, will they flex their financial might in the NL Central? And I haven't really seen them do it yet, Feels like there's always conversations in the offseason where they get lucky, where they end up with Bregman, who didn't really have much of a market, and they finally went out there and were able to get a deal to happen for him. But at some point, when you're the Cardinals, I think what Bill DeWitt III said to you guys on opening day, I think their actual plan is to eventually get back towards spending to be a top 10, top 15 payroll team. And if you do, and you've got young talent that comes up through your system, that is a great spot to be in as an organization, and that's how you can really accelerate your timeline, on top of the fact that you're going to get some surplus value with potentially some of the pitching that comes through your pipeline. I think they're in a very good spot. Meanwhile, I look at the Cubs and I go, they're in a good spot right now, is Chicago. The problem for them is they're dealing with so many injuries, and do they have anything else that's coming when these guys start to show their age, especially in their rotation?
Somebody, Vizzini, brings up a really good question that I'm kind of curious your thoughts on. Let's say the salary cap is instigated. Who's in a better position? It's the Cardinals, right? Because the Cubs would have to get rid of some of their payroll, whereas the Cardinals are going to be in a position where they've got to spend. So that might benefit that team even more in terms of their future.
What did we say? The ceiling, 245 is the ceiling. Cubbies right now, their payroll's at 221. So they
don't need to get rid of it.
They don't need to cut. I think the Cubs in that scenario are probably in a better spot.
Because they can spend to the cap, whereas the Cardinals aren't.
They can spend to the cap, but also they can hang on to everything, right? And they don't have to add externally. Just because you're spending more money doesn't mean it's going to go right.
Right.
As we've seen, look at the Mets. They're not necessarily winning a bunch of baseball games, even though they have technically the highest payroll in baseball. Same with the Blue Jays. Blue Jays spend a ton of money. They're not playing particularly well. So I don't know who. I would lean towards it's probably better for the Cubs just because they technically don't have to make any moves. Meanwhile, you're the Cardinals. You have to go out and spend externally, which means you're adding older players, which could be a good thing, or you bet wrong in free agency, as we've seen in the past.
Right.
That can really change depending if it's a long-term deal, change the trajectory of a franchise.
The other thing, too, that you keep in mind in terms of where the Cardinals are at is this upcoming draft. What do they have? 6 picks in the top 75, or is it 9 picks?
Oh, I don't remember off the top of my
I
head.
thought it was a decent amount in the top 75, or maybe it was the top 100, but still have a lot of draft picks in this upcoming draft that could benefit this for Chaim Bloom. So one other thing I wanted to mention with this Cubs series, you mentioned his name in Dansby Swanson, who is kind of the black hole for this batting order when you look at the Chicago Cubs. And at least right now, it has been that same sentiment for Mason Wynn. He has really struggled offensively. He's got a 230 batting average, a 623 OPS. He is not giving you really any power. The on-base percentage is continuing to dip at 309. Is it time we start to change our expectations for Mason Wynn? Because I think there was hope that Mason Wynn's bat was going to be a little bit more lively, not so much the pop, but maybe a better on-base percentage guy, a guy that's a little bit more of a effective bat for you. And you made the comp in the office, T-Bone. People may need to come to terms with he just might be Dansby Swanson. And is that okay for Cardinals fans?
I mean, if he became Dansby Swanson, win for me. Because, I mean, that guy's a two-time Gold Glover, average about 3 wins above replacement per season. Always gives you Gold Glove defense at that shortstop position, and then has years where he's decent offensively, and then years where it ends up being more of like what Mason Wynn was last year. I think that would be a win. I'm not giving up hope yet on Wynn's bat. I still hope that there's still a little bit more pop in it. I don't think he's ever going to be a high on base guy. My hope is, can he at least get back to 2024, where he's 267, 314, 416 slug. That was 4% above league average.
Mm-hmm.
I'm holding out hope that he can kind of get up in that range. I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that's 10 to 20% above league average, but can he be slightly above league average or right around it? And then you add in that Gold Glove defense. That's how you end up being a guy like last year, where he was, he was only at 2.2 wins above replacement. But if he can get to around league average, you're talking about a guy that could be 5 wins above replacement, and like he was 2 years ago. So my hope is there's still more in the bat. But if he became Dansby Swanson, I mean, that would be a huge win for the St. Louis Cardinals.
I think you hope he becomes and stays Dansby Swanson. I don't know if he is that or not. Now, look, Dansby's got more pop than what Mason Wynn has. Like, Dansby is a career about 20 home runs per season kind of guy versus Mason Wynn, who might only be around 10. But man, 248 batting average and a 317 on base percentage, like that's what you hope Mason Wynn can be for you. I mean, right now Dansby is really struggling with a 187 batting average.
Yeah, I don't want this version.
I don't want this one.
But to be fair, this is kind of Mason Wynn right now.
But at least Dansby Swanson's back of the baseball card you look at and you kind of be like, yeah, he's always going to be floating around this spot. Whereas Mason Wynn, you've got a couple of seasons of that, but I don't know how realistic it is going to stay there. I think where Mason Wynn, the defense you have to hope stays at that Gold Glove level, and I know he struggled this season with, 5 errors we mentioned yesterday. You just want the on-base percentage to be a little bit higher to where he's not like what Victor Scott is, to where it just is assumed it's an out every single at-bat, to where Mason Wynn has not been that in his career, and you hope it doesn't sustain at that level moving forward.
And my thing, too, is like with his speed, if he, whether it's to get on base or can find a way to just drive the ball kind of gap to gap, he should be able to manufacture some more doubles, right? I mean, he's got good enough speed to where if he can put a ball down the line or into the gap, he could be able to leg out a single into a double. And that's where it's just been kind of disappointing, is you're not seeing any signs of power right now. I mean, you look at his numbers on the season, just 8 doubles. Compared to 2 years ago, he was at 32 and his slug was at 416. This year, it's at 315 is where it's at. He's a guy that I'm hoping you're going to really start to see kind of turn the page now that the month of May is over. He's been bad here in the month of May.
Right.
He's been good against lefties, so maybe this can be kind of that stretch where he gets going, where over the next 9 games, you're going to see 4 out of 9 starters you're going to see are going to be left-handed, especially this Cubs series where 2 of 3 are lefties.
Yeah, month of May just has not been strong for Mason Wynn. So it's just one of those slumps that you look at and you say, just get through this month and then figure it out from there. Month of May, 203 batting average with a 275 on base percentage and a 541 OPS compared to what he was in March and April, to where he was more what I think Cardinals fans would like him just to stay at, 253 batting average and a 336 on base percentage. So hopefully it's just another one of those slumps, and for the Cardinals, just get through the month of May and get back to where you're at, but keep the elite Gold Glove defense. That's what Mason Wynn truly needs to be for this Cardinals team. Tanner Henderickson, Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we'll hit the rewind, but coming up next, one's got to go. You send us 3 scenarios to our Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. We'll tell you which one's got to go here on 101 ESPN.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Harkey with your Sports Center update brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. The Cardinals, after their heartbreaking loss to the Brewers, are back in action tonight against the Chicago Cubs. They are back in town. That game starts at 6:15. Their Sports Center update was brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
That big bang.
Along with Tanner Henderickson and Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario, a Friday staple here on BK and Ferrario. One's got to go. You send us 3 scenarios. We tell you which one has to go. You can send them over on our Air Comfort Service text line at 314-399-9646. Also, our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. The Graveyard Chat is where you can join in on that one. It's 1:34. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Let's start with this one from the 618. One rumor has to go. The Blues trade for the 2nd overall pick. The Blues trade for Mason McTavish, or the Blues trade for Ryan O'Reilly. I don't even think Ryan O'Reilly.
When did that one pop up?
Let's get rid of the Ryan O'Reilly.
I'll get rid of the 2nd overall pick one because I don't think it's happening.
I also think you get rid of 2nd overall pick.
Really?
I think they just stay.
Yeah.
I just don't. Why would you trade for Ryan O'Reilly?
I don't know,
now?
but it'd be fun.
More than the 2nd overall pick?
Yeah, O'Reilly was a hero here in St. Louis.
That's fine, but that was 7 years ago, man.
So?
Move on.
Why? They still want. Wasn't that long ago that we quit celebrating We Win Blues Day?
I mean, you're not wrong there. I don't think I would trade what it would require to get Ryan O'Reilly versus trade what it would require to get the 2nd overall pick.
I just don't think the 2nd overall. This is the thing. I hate talking about trading out the 2nd overall pick because I don't think it's happening. It hasn't happened for a while.
Until it happens.
Yeah, except it's not gonna.
Until it happens. One's got to. Oh gosh, this is a long one. Okay,
Skip.
Yeah, I might skip that one. That one's really difficult. One's got to go deep fried fair edition. Oh God, here we go.
Yikes.
Corn dog.
Can't go wrong.
Funnel cake. Oreo. Or a Twinkie.
Oh, this one's
deep fried Oreo,
this one's
funnel cake, Twinkie.
I think it's also easy. It's Twinkie, right?
No, that's wrong.
Twinkie's got to go.
No.
Hold on. Twinkie is the right answer here. Where are you going with this?
No, the funnel cake's got to go.
No, the funnel cake is a staple.
No, funnel
cake.
cake.
You don't go to the
around for a
fair
long time.
without a funnel cake, man.
I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't get the fried Twinkie either.
Oh,
but
God, no. Fried Twinkie's rough, man.
I remember when we had the old soda shop, we started doing funnel cake, and I made it one time during my break.
Oh, my God,
I felt
man.
awful the rest of my shift.
Well, yeah, you feel awful with any of them. It's fried food.
Get the funnel cake out of here. That's disgusting.
You're crazy, man. The funnel cake is where it's at. Oh,
no
God.
way.
Yeah, no, the Twinkie's got to go here. The Oreo is pretty darn good. Corn dog is the staple, and so is the funnel cake. We had my daughter's parish picnic last weekend, and I got a funnel cake when I was out there. Delicious. My kid was like, "This is amazing."
Did you feel terrible the rest of the day?
No.
Oh, I can't do it. The fried Oreo's good, though.
Fried Oreos are freaking incredible. The funnel cake is bad for you, but the fried Oreo's like, yes,
sir. I didn't
sir.
say any of these were healthy, but it'll just taste better.
One's got to go. Tarps Off, Rally Squirrel, or Gloria. I think the Tarps Off has to go.
Oh, wow.
Really? The other two led to championships.
We don't know what the Tarps Off's going to lead to yet.
Yeah, we can win it all.
If the Tarps Off leads to it, then I'll call.
Don't you want to see me and Ollie take our Tarps off when they win the division?
That would be fantastic. That would be fantastic. But I still think Tarps Off has to go.
No, I'm keeping Tarp. Baseball needs that. Get rid of Gloria.
Get rid of the Stanley Cup.
The only one.
Okay,
get rid of Rally O'Reilly so I can win another one.
Get rid of Rally Squirrel.
No, I can't get rid of the Rally Squirrel because I was at that game, so that one kind of has a special spot in my heart. Yeah, I would get rid of Gloria.
That's trash.
Just because, the songs, blah.
How
they didn't say
dare
I
you.
had to get rid of the Stanley Cup, I get rid of Gloria.
How dare you to say Laura Branigan's song is blah?
You know, if you go back in time and we get rid of Play Gloria, maybe the Careless Whisper becomes the song or something, right?
That'd be fun. God, I remember a month after that Stanley Cup, and as fun as it was, God, I hated that song. Because they kept playing it, and it's like, God, stop already. Now, it just brings back all those memories. But no, yeah, mine would be the Tarps Off on this one. One's got to go for the 636 Italian Food Edition. Spaghetti, chicken Alfredo, pizza, or lasagna?
Oh, this is easy.
This is going to be an unpopular opinion from an Italian. I'd get rid of spaghetti.
Yes, I'm with you there.
Really?
I think there are so many better pasta dishes than spaghetti.
And like lasagna, you got layers.
See, lasagna's got to go for me.
Oh, my God.
What the
Lasagna's got to go. I'm
Eric,
sorry.
E-money, what are you doing to us right now?
It's just too much sometimes.
Oh, no. All those layers, there's never enough, right?
God, I
Layer
feel like
upon
that's
layer.
the best. You got to make it with the right cheese. You can't use ricotta cheese. You got to use mozzarella cheese.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Ricotta's nasty. You got to use mozzarella.
I don't even know if I've ever had one with mozzarella cheese.
Oh, God, it's so good with mozzarella cheese. Ricotta's just nasty in this one. But, yeah, spaghetti's just too bland. It's just red sauce and noodles. I got to have a little bit more spice to this one.
You said with meatballs, like then maybe I have to reconsider. But
You got to get the red sauce right, whereas all the other ones, there's a lot more layers that go to it. So, Eric, you're 0 for again on that one, my man. From Dirk Diggler's unit, one's got to go. Victor Scott, Nolan Gorman, or Pedro Pajes.
So the three kids are. Okay.
So get rid of whichever one you despise the most.
I would say Scott would be the one I'd get rid of. I get the defense in center field. I don't know that he's been as good defensively this year in center field. And his bat's just been atrocious. So I think he's the one with Pajes, like, love it or hate it, I can understand the game calling. Gorman, I'm still going to hold out hope for that pure power to eventually find its stride. I don't know what the tool is for Scott. The Cardinals will say defense. You know me, I think defense gets overvalued across the sport, so I'd say Scott.
You got one on this one, Eric?
Gorman, I think he's just kind of like, when I watch the games the most, like I don't know, just something about him. I don't know what it is. Like, I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see the potential of other guys bringing him up.
I think mine would be Victor Scott as well, but it's just I don't know what else you're putting in that spot. Like, at least for the other ones, I can find a replacement for you. You may not like it, but you put Blaze Jordan at third, you put Jimmy Crooks behind home plate.
Oh, I would say screw defense. I would have Baez out there.
For center field, man, like,
Or
you put
Torres
Baez in center field?
You could do Torres in center if you didn't want to go Baez.
Or
And
honestly,
Torres is interesting because I think his hit profile, I don't know. I mean, he's not going to be this good, what he's been so far. But
if I can get a month out of it,
Yeah, like I like his hit tool a little bit better than Scott's.
All right, the long one I'm going to try and isolate here because they got upset that I said I'm skipping over this one. One's got to go draft decisions. Trade for the number 2 pick, trade for the number 4 pick, trade for 7 through 9, or make your 3 picks and take what's best available. So trade for 2, trade for 4, trade for 7 through 9, or keep your picks.
Get rid of trade 7 through 9. 2, 4, like you're potentially talking about getting a significant piece, whether that's Stenberg, McKenna, the center, Malhotra. So, like, I understand that one. Everything that everybody says, once you get to that past that 5 range, and you're talking like 6 through 11, you're basically settling for the same thing. So I would hang on to all 3 picks rather than move up to 7 through 9. So I'd say 7 through 9's got to go.
Yeah, I think I would get rid of 7 through 9 as well. If I have 11 and 15, I'll just take the best available and not mortgage different pieces to try and get up to 7 through 9. I think 1 or 2 and 4 would make the most sense, and then I would just keep whatever I have the rest of the way. Let's do 2 more of these. One's got to go stadium giveaways. A hat, a bobblehead, a replica jersey, or a replica ring. Oh, hat, bobblehead, jersey, ring.
Bobbleheads are cool. I kind of like the replica rings, so I'm down to hat, jersey. I would say jersey for me. I don't wear jerseys. I just go more the T-shirts, and I will wear a hat. So I would say get rid of the jersey. That's probably an unpopular opinion, but I'd say replica jersey's got to go.
I think ring. I don't know if I have, like, if we won a championship or we got a ring in some sport and I go to that game, I don't think I'm going to have much sentimental value towards a ring that was given to me at the stadium rather than, like, if I got a jersey of a player. The bobblehead has to stay. The bobblehead might be the best.
Yeah, the bobblehead's the best of these. I'm just going through the jersey or the shirt, and I think I'd get more use out of the shirt than the jersey. So, yeah, I think I'd get rid of the replica jersey because, like, I wear jerseys, but are you going to wear a jersey with a logo on it from the company that's giving them away?
And it's not small either.
Are you going to wear the ring?
No, but
you can put it up.
The ring, you put it up
somewhere.
Or honestly, you get wild with it and just sell the ring.
I should start wearing mine around, you know? Yeah. 2020
Walk around with your replica ring and just tell people you were a part of it.
Replica Rally Squirrel World Series ring. Don't mean to brag.
Imagine if you wore
I went to replica ring night.
Imagine if you wore a replica 2006 ring around BT. What do you think BT would say?
Yo, dude.
Look what I got, BT. Let's do one more of these. One's got to go. Cardinals Top Prospect Edition. Liam Doyle, Josh Baez, Tanner Franklin, Quinn Matthews. Let's get another one. Let's take a pitcher out of there. Let's take Tanner Franklin out and put Reno Rodriguez in there. So one's got to go. Baez, Rodriguez, Doyle, Matthews.
I think it's easy for me.
I think it's easy too here.
Matthews.
I think Matthews is the one that goes. There's more upside with Doyle than Matthews, and you're not getting rid of either of those two hitters.
Yeah, and I would have kept Franklin too over Matthews. And the reason I say that is because this is the theme of being a prospect, right? Once you see him fail once, you kind of start to lose the love for him, as we see when they get to the major leagues. Matthews is kind of stalled right now. I'm not saying I'm giving up on him completely, but he's kind of stalled down in AAA. This is back-to-back years where he's had some walk issues, command issues. So I think for me, it'd be him. Doyle's got incredible upside. Rodriguez seems like a special bat since they promote him to AA before he's 20. And I'm going to stick with Crooks because we'll see what he looks like when he gets here.
Completely agree with everything you said.
From somebody on the text line said, I'm not Italian if I don't like ricotta cheese.
Yeah, I don't think you can have lasagna without ricotta cheese.
You can. I am Italian.
I don't think it counts.
And my grandma, who was from Sicily, used to make it with mozzarella cheese, and it was amazing. Ricotta is disgusting. I will stand by that statement, and I've got two vowels at the end of my last name.
Not anymore.
That means I'm more Italian than most people.
Yeah, not anymore.
That's exactly what that means. Tanner Henderickson, Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, we'll hit the rewind and close out the week here on BK and Ferrario. the good stuff seems to happen in the last segment of BK and Ferrario.
Hey, what's going on?
Yesterday, the owners
they
gave their proposal.
Labor peace?
Labor peace probably right here. That's what we're going to get, right? Or maybe a Blues trade for second overall pick,
That's not going to happen.
No, but you did get some good news for Cardinals fans. The Cardinals just announced a minute ago that they are optioning Cesar Prieto and Joel Pozo to the Memphis Redbirds. And they are recalling Jimmy Crooks. So the catcher is now on his way to the Cardinals and have selected Nelson Velasquez from Memphis. So the spring training fans are finally getting their answer for Nelson Velasquez to be called up. Velasquez has been good in the month of May. He's hitting .308 with a .418 on-base percentage and a .600 slug. So he's been hitting really well. And then Jimmy Crooks, of course, we've talked so much about of him getting the call-up. So, T-Bone, let's go with just initial reaction when you see this news of Crooks being recalled and Velasquez being selected from the Memphis Redbirds. What are your thoughts?
So I'll start with Velasquez. I'm a little surprised because he wasn't on the 40-man, but they had a spot open, and it kind of makes sense when you think about it. You can send Prieto down. You got a bunch of lefties coming up, so I don't know when he's getting playing time. And when it comes to Velasquez, you're probably looking for a little bit more right-handed pop. As you mentioned, he's been very good in May. And the other thing is they were probably saying, hey, we need a little bit more right-handed thump. We only got about maybe 6 to 9 games before Nootbaar's activated. Let's not recall Baez and start his clock. Let's bring Velasquez up here, and then we can DFA him when we don't mind if we lose him. I hate to say that, but I think that's kind of the thought process here with Velasquez. I'm surprised by the Crooks one, just because I don't know that you can guarantee a ton of at-bats, but they must think that they can. This tells me they're going to be pinch hitting a lot for Pages late in games, and they're going to be willing to go to Jimmy Crooks and get him potentially late-game experience. So that's why I find that one a little bit surprising, because that was always my hesitation in saying they would call him up, was you can't guarantee a ton of at-bats for Jimmy Crooks. Or maybe they're looking at this and saying Pages is becoming the third catcher in the rotation.
That's kind of what I'm wondering.
And we'll see if Crooks maybe starts tomorrow. I think it'll be Herrera today because it's Palante that's on the mound. So I think you're going to see him be paired with him still. But that is something that's going to be worth monitoring over the weekend. Is Crooks in the third catcher's role and is just coming into games late when they pinch hit for Pages? Or has Pages been knocked down to that third catcher spot and they're willing to say, you know what? Let's see what Crooks looks like as our starting catcher.
Yeah, well, and I can't imagine that you're not going to get him at least a rep in the catcher position, but the Joel Pozo decision is interesting because Pozo really wasn't the third catcher. Now, they had him in case they needed him, but they kind of designated him to a pinch hitter off of the bench and a backup first baseman. And with Prieto being moved on from and Velasquez, we would imagine by the time Nootbaar's ready, like you mentioned, this is just a guy that you could DFA and move on from, and then you open up that spot for Nootbaar. Who moves into that Pozo role? Is that Jimmy Crooks? Is that Pedro Pages, to where he is just that bench player? But the thing about Pedro Pages, or the thing about Joel Pozo, was that was actually somebody you could use in a big hit situation, which Pages is not that. When Nootbaar comes back, does Torres become that for you?
To be fair, you could use Pozo in that spot. He hadn't been good at that spot. Pozo hasn't been good offensively. He had one big moment that he came through on a walk-off on the first night at Tarps Off. That's been about it. Their bench has not been very good when they pinch hit. Now, to your question, I have no idea who you're using to pinch hit in this scenario if Pages is the catcher. I mean, it could be Crooks. You just go Crooks for Pages in that spot.
Because you got your lefty bat coming off.
Yeah, lefty-handed bat against a higher leverage righty, and then you don't even have to make another move in the game. You can just keep him behind the plate, so maybe that's what they do.
I mean, in this,
Velasquez, if it's a lefty and he's on the bench that day, you could potentially look at as a guy that they could do this with.
Depending on who's in the lineup versus Torres, Fermin, and Gorman, you'll have one of those guys as a left-handed bench bat that's available for you. I don't know. The Crooks one is the part that I think is most interesting here because what's the role for him? I've just been under the impression that they love Pages, and you're not going to see Crooks unless he's getting opportunities. And so if I stay under that thought process, then Jimmy Crooks is going to get opportunities to play behind the plate. If he's here, they're going to want to see what it looks like, which means does Pages' role as a starting catcher get limited to 2 starting pitchers? And you get 2 for Ivan Herrera, and the 5th goes to Jimmy Crooks. So you're getting him that, and then you're getting maybe a DH and maybe a pinch hit opportunity throughout the stretch of games. Yeah. But this is the ideal slate to do this in because you're seeing a lot of lefties with the Chicago Cubs, which means Velasquez is probably going to see a lot of playing time. And then on the flip side of that, when you get righties, that's where you get to see some Jimmy Crooks moving forward.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, and it'll be fun to monitor it this weekend. Someone on the text line said, or maybe it's Ivan's foot is hurt, did foul a ball off his foot. I guess that could be it, but Pozo could have been catching too at that point.
And Herrera kind of limped towards first base.
Since they didn't put him on the IL, I don't think that has anything to do with it. I could be wrong. We'll see. You'll be speaking to the media here shortly. It'll be addressing these roster moves. You want to kind of guess what the lineup will be tonight against the lefty?
Yeah, do we even want to ruin the lineup game for the fast lane, even though we don't know what it is right now?
I don't think we ruin it when we don't know the lineup.
So they're going up against a lefty. So let's just go through this. They're going to keep the top of the four probably the same. So Weatherholt, Herrera, Walker, Burleson.
I think so. I think that'll be your top four.
Okay.
And then 5 is when it gets interesting.
I think that's going to be Velasquez.
I wonder if they go Wynn. Wynn's been good against lefties, but I would understand Velasquez.
Yeah, maybe you're not going to put Velasquez has been crushing it. It's just a matter of who he's been hitting.
You know what? I will take your side on this. I will bet it is Velasquez because that's probably the spot where you will look late in game to potentially pinch hit with Burley or, well, maybe not Crooks, but potentially Burley. You could do Crooks too because if you have Paz on the bench, like I think they'll do today since Ferrario will be paired with the starting pitcher.
Yeah.
But okay, so we'll go Velasquez.
Do you go Torres there or do you go Fermin there? Because you got the righty. Maybe go Torres there?
I would go
the lefty?
I would go Wynn and then go Torres followed by Fermin followed by Scott. And
so
Fermin
just two
would be
righties there?
Third. Yeah, I think that's what I would go. Weatherholt at second, Herrera catching, Walker in right, Burley at first, Velasquez DH, Wynn at short, Torres in left, Fermin at third, Scott in center. That would be how I would guess they line it up today.
You know what, man? Good for the Cardinals to say our lineup needs a spark and let's go bring something to it. Now, we'll see what the lineup looks like, but good on them because of years past, I don't know if you see this yet. I think they probably just keep chugging along and push through with it. But the fact that you bring up Jimmy Crooks, the fact that you're giving Nelson Velasquez a chance, you're just looking for some type of spark. There was no use for Cesar Prieto. You mentioned Joel Pozo has not been very good in the situations that you've used him in. Go get guys that, if it's temporary, if it's 5 games and they give you a spark and it helps you win 3 of them, then good. And then you move on from those players, meaning really Velasquez, when somebody's ready. That's the type of moves you want to do when you want to try and pull yourself out of this slump, and the Cardinals pulled that off. So, again, if you missed it, the Cardinals have recalled Jimmy Crooks, and Nelson Velasquez has been selected from Memphis, so he's placed on the 40-man roster. They didn't have to make a retroactive move to the 40-man because they had one spot available to them, so Cesar Prieto and Joel Pozo have both been optioned to Memphis. The Cardinals open up this weekend series against the Chicago Cubs. Both of these teams very close in the standings right now. What do you think happens this weekend, T-Bone?
I think they take 2 or 3 from the Cubs. I think you'll see the offense get kind of going here now that they've got a little bit of a refresh to the locker room / to the lineup. I think they'll take 2 or 3. The pitching will continue to do well. I don't know that they win tonight against Imanaga, but I'll say they win Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, I think they win 2 of 3. I think Libby gets the win, and I think Leahy gets the win. I don't think they win this one tonight. But 4.5 games back of Milwaukee. The Cubs are 4 games back of Milwaukee. Now, the Cubs have won 2 in a row. The Cardinals have lost 4 in a row. So should be a great weekend out at Busch Stadium. I know you're headed down this weekend. I'm going to the game on Sunday with the family, so looking forward to this one. Big shout out to Eric Harkey, who has helped us today. He's done a phenomenal job this week filling in. BK will be back with us on Monday for a fresh new week of BK and Ferrario. So we'll react to the Cubs and Cardinals series, and then their next series going up against the Texas Rangers. If you missed anything from our show today, you can check it out on our podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app. It's brought to you by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers, and of course the podcast you could check out, which is brought to you by Schaefer Door Company. For Tanner Henderickson and Eric Harkey, I'm Alex Ferrario. Have a great weekend. Enjoy Cardinals Cubs. We'll talk to you on Monday. The Fast Lane coming up next here from 2 to 6 on 101 ESPN.